welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Kuehl Show. I am your host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. And yes, I know I'm alone this week, but that's okay. We'll have plenty to talk about here this week, including NHL training camps getting started up, all that here on 12-Ounce Sports. Catch us on 12OunceSportsRadio.com, the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter of 12-Ounce Sports. And we'll get to so much more today, but we got to get right to it. We got some business to talk to as we're bringing on our first of three guests here on the Kuehl Show on this Monday, July the 13th. Our first guest today is the longtime television play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Flyers, working for NBC Sports Philadelphia, been with the team since 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Jim Jackson. Jim, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Tyler. How are you?
Oh, we are doing well. I mean, some good signs here. Players are on the ice. Everyone's, seems like hockey is right around the corner, and that's got to be exciting, not just for, hockey fans in general, but the Philadelphia Flyers as well.
Yeah, the Flyers are having a great season. They were one of the hottest teams in the NHL when the pause came upon us. But, I don't know how much of that holds up going into this. It really feels like the start of a new season or even the start of a World Cup as opposed to restarting the season that was. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But yeah, there's excitement here. The team is young. They're entertaining, and they have a chance. And they haven't won a cup around here since 1975. So there's some excitement.
Yeah, it's funny because that's one of the big questions I have regarding this team because, they made the playoffs a couple times the past few years, but it's been a long time since this team has really been a contender. I'd say even before the 04-05 lockout, because I'm thinking, back when, Keith Primo was the captain for this Flyers team. What has made this season so different from years past?
Well, it's if I had to point to one particular factor, it would be Alain Vigneault. He's done a great job of putting this team together. He talked about having it find its rhythm sometime around the holidays. It's just about the time they did that, and he's been around. I mean, he's coached a lot of teams. He's coached a lot of good teams. He hasn't won a cup yet. He's certainly got that as motivation, but he's done just about everything else as a head coach. I think he'll win the Adams. He certainly has a good chance to win the Coach of the Year, and he really deserves it because he's taken a lot of different pieces, veteran pieces, some young pieces, some acquisitions, and made it all work.
I mean, it's great to see because especially since there's been guys that have been in and out of the lineup too. And I remember, of course, watching the Leafs the past few years, how good James Van Riemsdyk was, even back when he was a rookie with the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, seeing him out of the lineup a little bit, having a guy like him around, though, is just having him around the team, a veteran guy like that, amongst other players, of course. A guy's got like Matt Niskanen, of course, Captain Claude Giroux. How is a veteran presence like that on this Flyers team helping the young guys like, your Konechny's and your Couturiers really develop into veteran star players here in this league?
Well, there is a real good veteran core here. I mean, starting with the guys that have been here for a while. Claude Giroux, you mentioned him. And Sean Couturier is now a veteran, and he's the hub of the team. So you've got a good veteran base. They brought in Niskanen. He's been tremendous in terms of the defense and helping Ivan Provorov, his defense partner, go to a new level. And JVR is a guy who really accepted a role that was probably lesser than he anticipated when he came over here last season. At least this year, there's been a lot of times he's been on the third line, a couple times the fourth line, but never really made any kind of problem with it. Continued to perform on the power play and has managed to score enough goals to be in the mix. And he was injured. He's getting a kind of a break with his pause because he would have missed a lot of time leading right into the playoffs, but now he'll be ready and raring to go if he's healthy, if he stays healthy, as we all hope all the players do, going into the bubble in Toronto.
Yeah, it's great to see, obviously, the break because it helps everyone. So it's going to be, I don't want to say a best on base, but everyone's going to be healthy. But that said, it's pretty much a start over, like you said off the top here. It's going to have a little bit of a rusty feel for a lot of these players. I mean, obviously, we have training camp starting today. But we've learned the month of October for hockey is just wild. Defensive systems go to the wayside. Offensive numbers go up. Where on this team will the Flyers offense come from? You have Konechny, Couturier, Voracek, Giroux leading the rush, but how many of the role players are going to have to step up offensively for the Flyers here coming up into the round robin?
Yeah, in playoffs, usually there's an unexpected source for a team that goes on a run. So there's certainly a possibility that a guy will jump up like a Scott Lawton or someone of that ilk and become a major force in the playoffs. But really, this team isn't about one or two players. It's about balance. They get a lot of offense from their defense core, with Provorov scoring, and Niskanen can score, and Phil Myers can score, Augustus Bersan. You go right down the list. They can all contribute from the back line. And then they get offense from guys like Nico Bell. So they expect it to be a balanced attack. So many years here in Philadelphia was about the top line, whether it be the Legion of Doom or Peter Forsberg's short time here, or then it had been in recent years, Giroux's line had to be the line to carry the team. It's not like that anymore. It's a balanced team. Makes them harder to check, and those are the kind of teams that I think have a much better chance for success in the playoffs. So the Flyers are happy with the fact that it's not about one or two offensive guys. It's about balance.
Yeah, and that's obvious. That's really important, especially going, like you said, into these playoffs and with having depth guys. And one guy that, kind of came in with a little bit of, I guess you can say, expectations, given a pretty solid contract, was Kevin Hayes. He came over from the Winnipeg Jets and was signed by the Philadelphia Flyers. 41 points this year, sits fifth on the team in 69 games played. Not a bad number. How do you think he's looked in his first year in the Flyers uniform?
He's serving a role, Tyler. They did not expect him to necessarily lead the team in scoring. They just wanted him to be a big center iceman. I think the original plan was for it to be Couturier, Hayes, Patrick, but they're not going to have Nolan Patrick for this, and they haven't had him in over a calendar year now. So Hayes became that much more important as a big center iceman with Nolan Patrick's illness. So you have you have Hayes coming in. He's done different things. He's been outstanding on the penalty kill. He's been a physical presence in terms of his size up front, which they did need, and he's also been a great addition off the ice because he's one of the funniest guys in the NHL, and he keeps this team loose. So he's served a whole bunch of different roles, but has been a real nice addition to the team here.
Yeah, that's always good to see. But of course, a team can't win in the regular season and can't win, especially in the playoffs, without goaltending. And especially in today's NHL, the goaltending duo, or at least the setup of that, has become status quo in order to have a successful hockey team. You see it in Boston, you see it in Dallas. Philadelphia has one tandem right now that I don't think many expected given the way Brian Elliott's career kind of was going in Calgary. But now he comes over to Philadelphia and now is backing up Carter Hart. And those two have been phenomenal this season. Good enough to get the Flyers into the second spot in the Metro Division. How has that tandem worked so well this season in Philly?
Well, the tandem has worked. It's Carter Hart's team. Don't you're wrong, but it has worked because Brian Elliott's accepted his role and has taken his role as a mentor, but more so just a guy who will fill in for Carter when he needs it. And Carter's had some troubles on the road this year, which I guess it depends on how you look at this bubble situation. There really are no road games. There are no home games. So
right.
Maybe that works better for him, but his numbers at home are off the charts good. Hasn't been as good on the road, and Brian Elliott was able to pick up some of the play on the road and was very impressive for this club. A veteran guy who knows his role, wants to be part of a winner is Elliott, and it works perfectly for Carter, who's just a dedicated young kid who will do anything to support his team, and it's a great mix. Brian Elliott has, I don't think a lot of people know this, but he has the second best goals against average in the NHL over the last 8 years. Now, some of that was built because he was on some extremely talented defensive clubs in St. Louis, but bottom line is, if you go over a long period of time, that long a period of time, in the top 2 or 3 of the NHL in a stat like that, it means you're doing something right. And so Brian Elliott might be a tad underrated. He didn't have a great go in Calgary in a one-season thing, but outside of that, he's had a pretty solid career.
And, I remember when it's almost like comparing, I guess, that to Marty Brodeur, how Marty always had great defense in front of him. So that was always the criticism against him. He was never having to face 45 shots a night. But then again, that was Jacques Demers' 1-3-1 system.
I would venture to say that Marty Brodeur was the third defenseman. He might have helped Scott Stevens and Scott Niedermayer as much as they helped him.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
People, you watch that team. How many times you dump the puck in and it's coming right back out at you? It was hard to beat the trap skating through it for sure, but it was hard to beat the trap dumping it in because of Martin Brodeur. So I wouldn't say that Marty's career was built just because he's on a good team.
Well, no, no,
I think,
I'm not.
he might
I'm
be
not
the
saying
best
that.
goalie in the history of the NHL.
Yeah, statistically the best goaltender, and I still believe he's the only goaltender with 3 goals. I mean, he only technically shot 1, but hey, as goaltenders, you take them as you can get them. But going back to Carter Hart, and I've followed Carter Hart's career because I'm a big fan of watching Canadian junior hockey and watching him come out of the WHL with Everett and winning a gold with Team Canada. I'm like, all right, cool. He'll be Philly's goaltender in a couple of years. Everything seemed like they were going to kind of ease him into the pro game. And the first year at Lehigh Valley, the first half of the year, it's like, okay, well, he's still getting used to playing almost every night, playing in the American Hockey League. And next thing you know, all right, he's going to be our goaltender now. And they jump him up, and they obviously wasn't able to turn that into success in terms of making a playoff run last season. But now he's almost cemented himself as the number 1 goaltender. How have you seen Hart's game evolve since day one coming in with the Flyers?
I mean, he's young. He is definitely going through some growing pains, but at home this year, he was as good as any NHL goaltender. On the road, he was not very good. So there have kind of been 2 Carter Harts this year. And I guess some inconsistency can come from a young goaltender. But the one thing I know about Carter is he's just he looks about 15 facially. He's still very young by goaltender standards, but his approach is very mature, and he's very technical about his craft. And I just think that this is the kind of makeup that if he stays healthy, he's going to eventually just churn out victories and churn out huge seasons, because he's just got that it factor when it comes to the preparation. It comes to being part of the team. He doesn't throw his team under the bus when they don't play well in front of him, and he's just got it. So I think he's still going through the growth process with less than, well, really now with this season not even fully, hasn't had a full season yet, but close to a full season now, and he got more than a half a season last year. So he's getting there now to the point where he's getting everything he's experiencing just about everything he can at the NHL level. And I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And you just have to ask his teammates. They just rave about. First thing Matt Niskanen in his mouth today was, we have a chance because we have a goalie that can win the Stanley Cup. So I think Carter Hart's in a good spot. If again, he stays healthy throughout his career, I think we'll be talking about him as a top goalie for a long time.
Yeah, I saw that save he made. They posted the video on Twitter, the slow-mo save he made in camp today. It's a pretty good-looking save for sure, and I'm sure one that he's made many times before. And you did mention how the Flyers, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I read they had they had the best home record in the NHL this season. Going into Toronto, obviously, like we said, it's all neutral site games, but it's on a road city. Do you think that'll sit in the back of the Flyers' minds? Because they are fantastic in Philadelphia. It's almost, watching games there, it's nowadays especially, it's almost seemed like it was impossible for any team to go in there and get a point. Now going in Toronto, going into a road building, do you think that's going to have an effect with the Flyers going into this round robin and into the first round of the playoffs? Or do you think that round robin will kind of help them get kind of accustomed to the area and maybe will actually help them when the playoffs start?
It's really the question of the night, question of the month, question of the year, because none of us have been through this. and usually I'll chalk a lot up to experience, but the other teams, even the older teams, haven't experienced playing in a bubble like this for this long if you're going to go on a run. So it's going to be new for everybody. I can't say that it'll hurt the Flyers to be so inexperienced from a playoff standpoint, because these are going to be different playoffs than we've ever been used to. And without fans, I don't know, that electricity might not be there. So will they feel the tension? Will they feel the importance of all these games being in the same spot over and over and over again with no fans? This is all going to be interesting to see. I just don't really know at this point. I can't give you an answer. I do think that generally what I would say to you is that they're a young team and they have a lot of players who will be experiencing the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time, that it would work against them not to have any home games. But every team is going through the same thing, and none of them have gone through it before. So it's really a complete wild card.
you almost think that maybe not having the environment of having fans almost may help them, because then I don't want to say there's no pressure, because obviously, heck, you go on your phone and there's everything on social media, which is just a cesspool sometimes, but it can really make it almost easier for these young players to come in here with no pressure, no fans yelling at them, booing them, whatever. It's just a clean slate, just game like you did on a Saturday morning in Pee Wee. That's almost what the situation may look like for some of them.
Yeah, really. I mean, can't do it, but a good thing for maybe a coach to do would be to say no social media while we're up here. Stay away from it, because that'll keep the outside world completely out of it, and they'll have no idea. As you know, even in the best of times, there's naysayers out there.
Right.
So, if you avoid that one during the worst of times, because you can get kind of like an avalanche. But I don't think you're going to see Alain Vigneault tell his players to stay off of their social media platforms. That would be pretty hard to do. I mean, you do look at a situation like this where there's no fans, so you won't have that pressure of when you go on the road in the playoffs of facing the enemy. And there's pressure sometimes at home too, and you feel that nervous tension in the air in a tight game. So there's none of that. Now, will you feel that still just because of what's going on, the importance of the game, your teammates? Maybe. But again, we really just don't know. This is a new situation for everybody.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, and of course, the Flyers taking on, in the round robin, 3 pretty good teams in their own right. They got Boston, Tampa, and Washington. Obviously, we don't know who they're going to play in the first round, but everything's up in the air. How do you think the Flyers will match up against those 3 teams, though, heading into this round robin?
Well, it's good. You're playing good teams. You want to do that. Alain Vigneault pulled no punches. Neither did Chuck Fletcher, the team's general manager, today when they were asked about it. They're treating those 3 games as tune-up games. Now, seeding, again, no real home ice advantage, although you will get the last change. So there is an advantage still to being the home team, but not as much as normal. So the seeding isn't vital to them. They're more concerned with getting everybody who might be part of this at some point, because you're going to get injuries, they're going to get illness, hopefully not COVID illness, but you're going to get things that are going to cause players to miss games. So you're going to need depth, and you can't have those guys not playing any games going into the tournament and then being called upon after 4.5 months of inactivity to kind of get in there and be at full speed. So I think they want to get some different players, some action in those 3 games. I don't think wins and losses will be as important. Sure, they want to play well, and usually when you play well, you win. Not always in hockey, though. You can play well and lose in hockey, as you know, run into a hot goaltender or something. Most important to them is to be playing well and get everybody in there, get a look at everybody. I assume that means we'll see some of Ryan Elliott in those 3 games. So I think that's really what their MO is going into those 3, and we'll see if it continues to be that way. They win the first 2 and have a chance for that top seed. Maybe they change their tune a little bit, but at this point, I think they end up the 4th seed. They end up the 4th seed. You can avoid facing Pittsburgh if you stay out of that 4th seed. You know that.
Oh, I'm sure both fan bases would love if they just stayed away from each other. I'm sure they just wouldn't want to just go at each other. That's probably the one sad thing about that, is that were to happen if it was Philly and Pittsburgh. It wouldn't be in either building. That's the sad
going
part.
at it on Twitter. That's about it.
There'll be some Zoom calls between friends.
Yeah, that can be entertaining too. You're right, but yeah, no, it's a situation where they would play them as the 4th seed if Pittsburgh wins. Again, Carey Price gets hot. Who knows? But it's still be really interesting to see how many upsets there are in those playing rounds, and then how the seeding shakes up. But there's no question about it that the target for the Flyers, they talked about it today, is August 11th, which is their first game in the round of 16. That's what they're targeting for. They're going to use the preseason game that they get up there, plus those 3 round-robin games to get ready for the 11th moving forward, as opposed to getting ready and getting everybody set to be at peak performance for those 3 round-robin games. It's the 11th that is their focus.
We'll see how focused they are. As you said, counting the 11th, Philly taking on 3 teams before then. Who will they face in round 1? We will wait and see. We've been chatting with
anybody. They could face anybody.
They could be anybody. Man, I tell you, if it's the Islanders. Okay, would you rather have it be an Atlantic team or a Metro team, since they're probably a little more kind of, I guess, familiar with the Metro teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't really, again, it's pretty hard to tell. It's hard to even imagine tendencies. You probably have to see how the teams play as they play in those the qualifiers, because right now it's. I mean, I don't think they want to play the Rangers. Rangers seem pretty hot, but I don't know if they're still hot, same as the Flyers. So it's from a fan standpoint, an interest standpoint, Pittsburgh Rangers, that would be great, but might not happen that way. You just have to wait and see.
That's the way the playoffs go. Once again, we've been chatting with Jim Jackson, longtime television play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. Jim, thank you very much for taking the time. We hope you enjoy the playoffs just like we will. It's going to be a lot of fun, and can't wait to see how the Flyers look and who they're facing on the 11th.
My pleasure. Take care. Be well.
All right, that was Jim Jackson, as we once said, of NBC Sports Philadelphia. A huge thank you to him coming on the show. You can follow Jim on all of your favorite social media channels at Jim J Philly with Philly. Can't spell today, but that's just how she goes sometimes with everything. You get a little razzle dazzled sometimes. But how's everyone doing today? That was a great way to start the show, don't you think? I know I'm by myself. It looks a little lonely. It's empty over here. I could have Kana, our lovely guest today. I guess you could say my puppy niece-in-law, I guess. It's my sister-in-law's dog. We're watching her for the week. She's beneath here. So if you ever hear any woof and barking going around, that's probably her. She's calm right now. We went on a nice long walk before we started the show here tonight, so hopefully she's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit calmer, but it seems like living in an apartment complex, one just bump and it just chaos. Dog is running around, and she'll probably grab her bone and want me to play with her, but I gotta tell her I'm busy. Ain't that right, Kana? Yep, she's okay. She's laying down. She's being a good girl. So, it's been a crazy couple days, eh? Monday, training camp starts up, and all of a sudden we're back to hockey Twitter again. Hashtag hockey Twitter. It's got the little emoji at the end of it. Make sure you use that when you're talking about the Kuehl Show today. Hashtag TKS at the Kuehl Show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, we are live here on your favorite 12-ounce sports network, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Twitter, or even 12ouncesportsradio.com. We're glad you can join us here. And if you're not able to watch all this show today, that's totally fine. We get it. We understand you're busy. Monday nights, you may have dinner. You may go out. Hopefully you're wearing your mask out there. Make sure you wear that to the restaurant at least. You can take it off when you sit down, but wear it when you get out there. But maybe you're, having a binge-watching session, whether it be Netflix, HBO Max, whatever, with a special someone, by yourself. I'm not judging. Hey, I watch stuff by myself all the time. I'm pretty sure I've watched all the 30 for 30s on ESPN+. Best investment I made, also because it gets Disney Plus and Hulu. And the wife and her best friend Ashley love the fact that they get to watch the making of Frozen. They love it. It's great. It's a whole season of stuff. I have to watch it with them. Marriage. It's a wonderful thing. But we're going to take a quick break here, folks. When we come back, we will talk more about the NHL's return to play. We'll talk about that along with who is not going to be there, who may be there. We will have to wait and see. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show when we come back right after this.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Drink Aid, ready for distribution worldwide.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Kuehl Show here on 12-Ounce Sports. I am your host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. And that was a great interview. Thank you once again very much to Jim Jackson, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. Once again, we're here on 12-Ounce Sports, and got to give a shout-out here to our lovely sponsors. We didn't get a chance to start off the show. We'll give it to them now, though. Once again, our show is brought to you by 12-Ounce Sports, Second String Leather Company. Second String Leather. Check out their custom series. You can, if you're a former goaltender like myself, you can send them your gear. Send it to them. Pick out what kind of gear you want, what kind of stuff you want from them. That goes all the way from keychains and wallets to belts and even shower bags. Shower bags, duffel bags. Take your gear, make it into something you can take with you forever. I have a couple sets of pads of my own that I could probably use. Some pretty, mucky, puck-marked looking white pads that look like the epitome of a taller Archer's Urbe. If you know who Archer's Urbe is, I can tell you right now, you're older than I am. That's how old Archer's Urbe was. San Jose Sharks and Carolina Hurricanes legend, Archer's Urbe. And, of course, mybookie.com. Bet on all sports, win, and get paid. Use the promo code 12-Ounce Sports today to join for free and bet on some of the best sports. Obviously, we got football coming up here, some baseball, hockey, obviously, coming up here sooner than later. There's been all the talk, of course, with everyone, all these hubs going around, everyone moving in, everyone going to Florida, which is just seeming like the worst decision that people have made. I get it. It is a good area because Walt Disney World, you can cut off the entire park to the public, but let's put everyone in there. And yet they're shocked when yesterday the Toronto FC DC United MLS match was postponed. And I don't know why anyone's shocked about that because, yes, players probably have coronavirus because they're in Florida. Florida. 15,000 yesterday. 12,000 cases confirmed today. Hey, guys, maybe putting all the best athletes in the world in Florida may not have been the best idea. I'm just saying that may be something that they should have thought about, but I digress. Obviously, we got a lot more to get to today with the return to play here in the NHL, and that all started with the NHL's new CBA being ratified, the CBA that will carry us to the end of the 2025-2026 regular season. Which means, ladies and gentlemen, remember all those shows we had last season? How we were saying, oh my gosh, we're going to have another lockout. It's going to be over. We're just going to be talking about AHL hockey and junior hockey and college hockey. And while that's all fun and dandy, we want the NHL. But we're going to have a lockout. But then they refused. They didn't open it. Okay, so it's good for another season. And then they do this. Ladies and gentlemen, the NHL has saved itself. I don't know if it's the NHL. The NHL and the NHL Players Association come out and save each other. How about that? Save each other from impending doom. Okay, maybe not doom, but labor peace. Guys, this is something in my lifetime that I've only experienced once. Now, granted, yes, the CBA that was put in place after the 2012 lockout, that obviously gave us 10 years. But we knew there would be some issues because the Olympics were always uncertain, it seemed like. But now, 6 years with salary caps, and especially right now, the weird economic issues the NHL is facing. Labor peace with that. The league agrees. The players agree of a flat cap until the league is profitable again. A 10% rollback for next season on contracts, which include not just the big boys, not just your Austin Matthews contracts, your Connor McDavid contracts, your Leon Draisaitl contracts. We're talking about even some of the minimum wage contracts. They'll all take 10% rollback because they understand it's for the good of the league. I would say in years past, it'd be a little different because I always had the inclination and always had that slight feeling that the NHL players wanted to be paid more. They wanted to be paid more like the NBA players, more like the Major League Baseball players. And even soccer/football superstars, American football superstars. They always want to be paid more because if you look at the 4 major sports here in North America, they are paid the least in terms of the big names. I'm not sure what NBA bench players make. I'm not even going to ask, not even try to figure that out myself. But they always want to get paid more. So the fact that they're willing to take a rollback to realize for the good of the league, For the good of the league, they want to help it. They want to be able to play because they know they're also going to get it paid back to them. That's the big thing I think people are okay with. The players are okay with it, at least. They know that this 10% rollback that some players really had to suffer from the 0405 work stoppage, that they never got that paid back. This rollback will get paid at the end, the last 3 seasons of this current CBA. So 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26 seasons, they'll get their last 10% they get taken away from this year. They'll get it paid back to them. And, of course, escrow will go down. Yes, escrow will be at 20% next year. Yes, it's going to be big because why? Well, the league needs money. And this is an escrow that may not go back to the players, understandably, because guess what? We may not have as many fans next season in the seats. Okay, we understand that. As a society, we're accepting that now. Players are accepting that, and they realize, all right, next year, they're almost looking at the NHL saying, we'll give you next season. We will give you the money next year, as long as it comes back to us, which it will, because the escrow will continue to drop. We talked about it, obviously, in spades last week with Alex here. We were able to really dive into what it was going to consist of, the new CBA. So it's good to see that nearly 79% of the players voted in favor. A unanimous decision. Not a 46%, not a 49. I'm talking wide range, 79 to 21%. And I'm not going to harp on the 21%. You guys were wrong. How dare you try to vote against the league? I'm not going to do that to them. It's not fair to them, all right? Obviously, it's good that the NHL is going to have something going for them. But now with that said, let's get to the present. Training camp start today. Back to news all over again. Man, I am so happy that whenever I hit my phone, there's 20 things from Chris Johnson, 15 things from Bob McKenzie, even though he's slightly on vacation. Pierre LeBrun's always tweeting like crazy. Elliot Friedman isn't texting me, but he's still tweeting out there. He's a busy man. He can't talk to me all the time. I get it. Good buddy Friedman, I understand what you're doing. But here are some of the important dates coming up here. First one, July 24th, teams report to the hubs. August 1st, game time, at least for the play-in. Yeah, I guess there are round robins as well. But the play-in, obviously, is going to be the bigger focus. We'll get to more of that here in just a second. The league also hopes to finish the playoffs within 62 days. Now, for all they are keeping track, that's 2 months. Listen, if there's anything we've realized with this coronavirus, is that the months have been extended probably 1,000 times more than every other year. The 30 to 31 days that we've had for months have seemed to have expanded to like 65 days with 30-hour days because they just drag on, take forever. And the league thinks they can get it done in 2 months. Now, I'm not saying they can't. If you really crunch down the schedule, it's possible. So, meaning the last day for the season is going to be planned for, I believe, October 6th, as I quickly scroll through. Because I know it's supposed to be at the end of October. I'm really interested to see how long, or if they're able to pull it off. Obviously, they are planning this all ahead of time to see if, obviously, these series go to 7 games. Now, not every series is going to go 7, but there's going to be a couple. And some of these play-in series may go 5 games. So, like I said, we'll get all of the schedule stuff later, but they hope the Stanley Cup is awarded by early October. Now, whether or not that happens, it may be late September, which would be great. You're right. For the sake of having the start of next season be earlier, let's just have everybody get swept. 4 games, 3 games in the play-in series. Let's just get this over with as quickly as possible. No, let's not do that. Let's have some good hockey here. I think the way the schedule's put together is going to make the next 2 months just fly by. We may honestly have to go to 2 shows a week, which means you're going to hear a lot more of my voice and see a lot more of this ugly mug, so I apologize in advance, but I want to give you all the best commentary and analysis. I can't even say analysis. Maybe this is not the best analysis for your playoffs, but I'm just saying it may be maybe a different analysis. Is that better? Is it? As I look in a room of emptiness all by myself? It is. I think so. I think it's good analysis. Anyways, thank you for SPHL Rando. Give me a shout out there for FL Horta, which, by the way, finally watched Ace Ventura Pet Detective in its entirety. Wow. Okay, why is it tie in? Because Ace Ventura Pet Detective was about the Miami Dolphins. Okay, sorry. My bad. Getting off topic here. By the way, I'll be actually on the Rando show, Talking Minors with the Rando, coming up after this. 8:30 start time on that show, Eastern time. I'll be showing up a few minutes later. But make sure you tune into that as well. But we got a long way to go before we get to that, a little under 2 hours from now. Of course, we got a couple interviews coming up later on in this show. Joseph Zita from Editor and Leaf will be on as well. We'll be talking about Toronto Maple Leafs with him. And then Matthew DeFranks of the Dallas Morning News talking about the Stars and how they feel heading into the round robin. But let's get to the nitty-gritty, if you will, which is funny because we just talked to Jim Jackson of the Flyers. Gritty, the mascot. Okay. It's awful with not Alex being here to put off these awful dad jokes on because I feel like he's just completely lost half the time. Then again, he probably just groans and whatnot. But obviously, we got to look at the coronavirus and how it's affecting so far in these playoffs. As of right now, or at least the NHL announced today, that there were 13 additional players who tested positive within the testing going into Phase 3 today. Now, obviously, there were over 30 cases that were returning that were already positive tests, and one of which was unofficially, should not have been confirmed, but was Austin Matthews. And Austin Matthews said, of course, he had COVID because I don't know how you couldn't after it leaking out, and I don't know who reported it. I don't want to know because I would call them out here on this show. I've done it before. I understand I'm not one that works in the health industry, but HIPAA is real. I have a wife who works in it. You don't mess with HIPAA, all right? I'm sorry. I'll leave that one aside. But Austin Matthews said he's pretty much recovered fully. He didn't really have many symptoms. He was asymptomatic. He said he felt fine, but obviously you can still have a sickness without being sick. But he's one that'll be coming back soon. There's a lot of other players that obviously have not been announced, but there were some that were, quote-unquote, unfit to play. There were 9 Penguins that were held off the ice. It wasn't reported who. I'm sure there was a lot of guys, a lot of beat writers, a lot of reporters out there jotting down who was in and probably doing process of elimination to figure out who was. But regardless, 9 Penguins were held off of camp today for precautionary reasons because they probably could have, there's a possibility they could have contracted it from someone within the team, whether it be players, coaches, staff, whatever, that had the coronavirus, who they encountered, whether that be a trainer, someone who worked around the team in that time doing the training in the Phase 2. That's why they held them off the ice. And it's smart. Make sure that everyone's healthy. I mean, it's not like the playoffs start tomorrow. You have a couple of weeks. You have 11 days before you have to report to Toronto. Yeah, hold your players off for a minute. If they're good to go by Friday, get them back on the ice. I mean, these guys have been skating a little bit. Not full tilt, I get that, but they've been going around. They'll be fine. One of the other guys, a couple other players that were deemed unfit, Colin Wilson, Colorado Avalanche, he was unfit to skate. Timothy Liljegren of the Toronto Maple Leafs is another. And Corey Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks, starting goaltender for the Hawks, he was also unfit to start camp today. And we're not just going to come out and say right now that these guys are, oh my gosh, they have illness. They are sick. We can't, because that's not how it's going to work. The NHL is in charge of disclosing injuries, sickness, whatever. Why players are not on the ice? The NHL is the only ones that are going to do that. Coaches can't say anything. Management can't say anything. Fellow players can't say anything. We can speculate as much as we want, but as of right now, we can't say anything because technically we don't know. But they are unfit to go to the ice. Now, they could actually be hurt. That is a great possibility. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that Liljegren really has an ankle injury. They're just going to deem everyone unfit to play. And I remember a couple people out there saying already today, get ready to hear the phrase a lot, unfit to play. And I will tell you this, if all you people who hated the term upper body injury, lower body injury, let me tell you right now, you're going to have to get used to this one because this one's going to last a while. And I'm pretty sure players are okay with it. Management's probably laughing at it, but they're like, hey, we'll use this. Scouting team sitting there thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I have to wait to see if he's actually hurt or not. That was me scribbling. I was scribbling on individual and invisible. Blah. I only had 1 cup of coffee before this, guys. I apologize now, but I'm interested to see who else we deemed unfit. As of right now, as I scrolled through Twitter, as I checked Twitter, there's no one as of right now that has been announced since then. At least no bigger names than those guys. Obviously, Nolan Patrick not going to be able to skate because of his migraines that he suffered throughout the entire season for the Flyers, as we mentioned that with Jim Jackson just a minute ago. And, of course, my dad asking how many wings are unfit to play. Well, Dad, all of them. All of them. No, I don't say all of them. We had Ken Cal on. There's a lot of great wings out there. A lot of great buffalo wings, too. Hey, there's a joke for you, because wings, I mean, hey, at least there'll be more wings eaten during the playoffs, and the wings will be losing in the playoffs. So that's all that's good, right? Hey, there we go. More Detroit jokes. We have them here on TKS, here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. But obviously with that, there were some players that were allowed to opt out of the playoffs, out of the play-in, of the return to play. They had till 5 o'clock today, and as of right now, there's only a few big names out there. The first one was Travis Hamonic of the Calgary Flames. Big-time defenseman, top 4 guy, can play third pair, but he's been a vital player for the Flames this season. Sven Berchi of the Vancouver Canucks has opted out. Mike Green of the Edmonton Oilers, Roman Polak of the Dallas Stars, and Carl Alsner of the Montreal Canadiens are the big ones. But let's be honest, guys. I'm pretty sure Montreal fans, when they heard Carl Alsner was not going to play, I'm pretty sure they celebrated, because Alsner is a little old. He's really not the Carl Alsner of 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I'm pretty sure they're okay with him not playing with the Habs in these playoffs. Obviously, you want as many depth pieces as possible in case something were to happen, but Carl Alsner is not quite a top defenseman like he used to be. But obviously, Hamonic's a big one. Mike Green, big pickup by the Oilers from Detroit. He's a guy that I'm sure the Edmonton Oilers wanted in their lineup in these playoffs, especially a guy that's had experience in the postseason before. Now, granted, he was on those Washington teams that didn't really make it far into the playoffs. They only made it to the second round ever. And Roman Polak, I mean, that's just for a Dallas team that has some young and inexperienced defensemen in terms of playoff experience, like Miro Heiskanen, for example, even though he had a solid playoff last year, but not as much. Having a guy like Polak there may actually be beneficial for him, but he's opted to stay home. And here's my take on all this. When Hamonic was the first one, and as soon as I saw Hamonic hit, I'm like, wow, this is for real. This is not just, I'm an AHL guy, I'll probably never play, I'd rather just stay home with my family. No, these guys are key players here in the NHL. These guys will actually play vital roles heading into the playoffs. These guys are not just bums that we're going to be black aces, wear suits up in the press box, wear with a mask on or whatever. These guys were actually going to play. So that's why now granted, there hasn't been an overwhelming amount of, I guess, I don't want to use the word angst, but I guess some displeasure towards it because, wow, you're bailing out on your team coming to playoffs. But there's been some. There's been some people that come out and said, wow, you guys have a chance to go far in these playoffs and you're just going to walk away from this opportunity, walk away from your team. Listen, these guys are making a choice for themselves. And it is, at this time, a choice that we should all respect. I myself, yes, I probably play because I love the game and I want a chance. But these guys have families to think about. There's more than just them. Mike Green, he has big health concerns. Same thing with Roman Polak. Here's the thing, though. These guys all wish their teams the best of luck. It's not like they're just leaving them because they don't want to be there. They're leaving because, hey, there's a serious thing going on right now. And you're going in, especially guys like Carl Alsner, they're going to Toronto. They would be going to Toronto, which, yes, I know it's very secluded, but it's a big city. There's been a lot of people going around there, coming in and out of there, even though they've been shut down. It's still a very, I would say a hotbed for a coronavirus, but there's a lot of people going in and out of there. A lot of people traveling around now with everything starting to open up. So you don't know what's going on around there. All these guys in the West, they're going to Edmonton. Now, yes, Edmonton, a little bit smaller than Toronto, but it's still a big city. You can cut off everyone as much as you want. However, there's still a chance that someone may walk out, accidentally get it from somebody, because it's in the air. It's a respiratory thing, guys. This is not just something that you have to go up to someone, give them a hug, give them a kiss to actually get this thing. You can be from here, from me to you, the camera at least, wherever you're watching here on 12-Ounce Sports, and you could still get it. The 6-foot rule is more or less just a guideline. So that's why I'm okay with these guys opting out. Have there been any Leafs? No. Have there been any, bigger names with the Oilers? No. You're right. If Connor McDavid opted out, yes, there would be an absolute firestorm because he is one of the best players in the game. If Sidney Crosby stayed home, absolutely. But here's the thing, though, guys. There's a chance that something may happen. We mentioned it with Jim Jackson off the top of the show, that these guys may somehow contract this illness. And you're right, guys. Game 5, Pittsburgh-Montreal. Man, where's Malkin? It's possible, guys. And these guys that I listed off, there's more also. There's other guys that, and remember, I think it was Mike Kitchens of the Florida Panthers, assistant coach. He's an older gentleman, has a little bit higher risk for the illness. He's opting out as behind the bench next to Joel Quenneville. But these guys all made a choice for their personal safety and their family safety over their professional success, which I commend. And I think we all should as well. I know there's probably some people out there that are thinking, of course, Tyler, we're okay with this. What's the problem? I'm just saying there's people out there that have been harping on these guys, and I don't like it. Not a big fan of it at all. One guy that has been in question of possibly not, or choosing not to be in the playoffs, whether or not he is or not, is Max Domi of the Montreal Canadiens. And there's a few other players that are type 1 diabetic, which Max Domi is. And it's interesting because he would probably, out of the guys I listed off, he would be probably the best player that would opt out. Because being a diabetic, you are at risk for illnesses more so than someone without it, obviously. So that's why he's waiting 7 to 10 days. Now, I'm not sure what the league's view is on this, but it would be before they left for Toronto when he would decide whether or not he wanted to come back or not. And this is something, he's a young kid. I know he's got a lot to think about. And yes, do the Montreal Canadiens have the biggest shot going against Pittsburgh? Maybe, maybe not. But it's still an opportunity for him to get playoff experience, something he has not had yet since coming into the NHL, whether it be in Arizona or here with Montreal. I don't think that you can just come out and say, hey, Max, come on, dude, you're the leader of this team, stay. Listen, this is an illness that if someone like him gets it, it could be fatal. Let's not hide that fact, guys. Max Domi has a lot to think about here. Yes, he could go play. You're right. And he may go play and not contract anything and be healthy as a horse. But there is just as good of a chance that he may go in there and contract this thing. And next thing you know, he may be on life support. Yes, is it a scary thought? Is Tyler going too far? Maybe, but let's be honest. This is the reality of the world we're living in, guys. I remember when the coronavirus first hit, before the whole shutdown happened, I remember I said to myself, all right, we're trying to keep it down as much as we can about the coronavirus. We'll just see how it goes. We'll let the health experts take care of it. Now we're at that point where people are getting put in bad positions, but these guys are honestly putting their lives not their lives at risk, but they're putting their livelihoods at risk. They're putting their bodies at risk by going and playing. And even if you sanitize the living daylights out of all the hotels in Edmonton and Toronto, everything at Scotiabank Arena and over there at Rogers Place, this is something that we've never experienced before, and I think the players are a little scared. I know we always talk about how NHLers are robots and they're just, got to do this for the team. It's got to be hard. Listen, these guys have personalities. These guys don't just, they put on a face for the media. I've been in the locker room. I've been around guys that have played in the NHL. I've been around guys that have played minor leagues, collegiately. And yes, you put them in front of a camera, throw a mic in front of their face. They're very straightforward, very monotone. You go out after practice and hang out with them in the locker room, they're great guys. They're fun guys. But these guys, they have feelings. They are considering the possible consequences, the negative consequences at least, of being in an area that may not be safe outside of their friendly confines of their own homes. So with that, I think we should respect that fact. Now, moving on here from, some sad news here, let's talk about the good news. The actual play-in series, the playoffs, the one thing we've been waiting for a long, long time. One schedule that we didn't think we'd ever see because, we were not quite certain if we were actually going to get to this point. Now, yes, everything's been fluid. Something could change easily in the next 2 weeks. Let's be honest. As much as I want to knock on wood and say we're going to have a playoff series, this coronavirus is like karma. And if you know what karma is, It is not a word I feel like saying right now here on live streaming. I was about to say live television, but I mean, if you are watching us on the replay on Zingo, you could be watching on a TV. So television, streaming, wherever you're watching us, I'm not going to say that word live. But we're getting there. August 1st. Big time playoff series coming up here. Best of fives. Let's kind of take a look in, I guess, the schedule, if you will. Here's the kicker about everything. This is why I say we have to almost go 2 shows a week here on the Kuehl Show on 12-ounce sports. There are 6 games per day. And by 6 games per day, I'm not just talking about playing games. This also includes round-robin games. So everything kind of starts off pretty easily. The first day, only 5 games. You have the Rangers and Carolina starting off, Florida and Islanders starting off, Montreal, Pittsburgh, August 1st in the East. In the West, just Chicago and Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg. Great series there. August the 2nd, Boston and Philly kick off the Eastern Conference round robin, while Colorado and St. Louis start off the Western Conference round robin. Toronto and Columbus, the only Eastern qualifying round playoff game that day. And then Arizona and Nashville, Minnesota and Vancouver, the other 2 games out in the West. After that, it's 6 games per day. 6. If you can count to 6, you know how tough it's going to be for us to keep track doing 1 show a week. Here's the kicker. I may not be able to have a job because look at this, guys. Ready for this? The schedule is as follows. Eastern time, there will be games at noon, 2:30, noon, 4:30, and 8:30 in Eastern Standard Time. No, local time, Mountain Time. I get my notes mixed up here, guys. 12 o'clock, 4:30, 8:30 local time in Edmonton, which is 2 p.m., 4:30 p.m., and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Eastern Conference games will be at 12 p.m., 4 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which means that there will be games 2 hours apart every day. If you are a college football fan in North America, United States, I guess in particular, NCAA football fan, with ESPN, CBS, even NBC with Notre Dame going on, you know what it's like having games on just like over and over again. Here's the difference between college football, or NFL, I guess if you really wanted to talk about that, and the NHL is that college football is on Saturdays. It's every day for 10 days. 6 games a day. I don't think my tablet, my laptop, my phone, my TV, I don't think I can all handle it for 10 days. Like I said, guys, this 2-month period these playoffs are supposed to be into, they may actually be faster than the last 7 months of this year. Well, it'll be 8 months come August 1st, but 8 months. I'm just saying, guys, it'll go by so fast, we won't be able to keep up, but it's going to be awesome because, first of all, we have hockey. That's number 1. Number 2, we get to watch hockey. Not just the highlights, guys. We have hockey because it's going to be on in the United States. NBC is going to have full coverage because you want to know why? You have the same, it'll be, I know I'm jumping around here. It'll be like the World Junior broadcast on TSN in Canada, where you have Gordon Miller and Ray Ferraro in the big rink, wherever that may be. And then you have another team at the second venue of the World Junior Tournament. And they're just going back like 3 games a day. Now, they may have different broadcasters filling because listen, these guys are doing 6 games a day for 2 months. Obviously, it'll dwindle down once you get to the conference finals and finals. But you know what I mean. Lots of hockey, short time frame. Doc Emmerich's not a young guy. There's not enough honey in his tea that can keep him going for that long. There'll be other broadcasters coming in. But they're going to be on NBC, NBC Sports, CNBC probably in the United States, North America. Every single sports net will be wiped clean. You almost would, at this point, you would hope that TSN would have something there so they could put it on their channels as well. But I know CBC, Sportsnet 1 will probably have some games. Sportsnet 360 will probably cover some games. You'll probably have some provincial ones. You'll probably have Sportsnet East host 1 game in Toronto and Sportsnet Pacific host the other out in Edmonton. It's going to be wild, guys. There's going to be so much hockey in the next 2 months that I don't know what I'd be able. I just feel like poor Kelly, my poor wife. Thank goodness she's not here right now. She's probably yelling at the other room. She's at work right now. God bless her. Going another third night. at the hospital. But we are looking at something of having so much hockey in the next little while that you're going to be exhausted. Now, yes, everyone's like, oh, but there's sometimes 9 games during the season, 9 game nights. Yeah, but there's the occasional 2 game night. Now, granted, yes, the 6 games a day will only last through the play-in series, more or less. And obviously, not every series is going to go 5 games because it's the next 10 days they expect to get this play-in round done. Not every series is going to go 5 games, so it may dwindle down here in about a week after the playoffs start, of course. But that said, it's going to be a lot of hockey. Imagine if every series went 5 games. Like, everyone's just going to be dead except for the round-robin teams. They're just going to be like, oh, we're just fresh and ready to go, and it's going to be the top 4 in each conference getting into the second round, and it'll be just like the NBA. Except, not the NBA, except it's hockey. But I mean, like, how only the top teams move on in the first round. It's rare you see an upset in the NBA these days. Unless it's like a 4-5 upset. But I digress. There is a lot of hockey coming up. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are all too. And when that all starts, I'll be swamped. I'll get so much stuff other to do, not just here on the Kula Show, but obviously covering for other sites. I may honestly help out the guys out with the hockey writers. I feel like I have to do something with some team. I know I was writing for Montreal when I first started there. If Montreal makes it a series, they may need some helping hands there, but it's going to be great. I'm really excited. And one of the teams, of course, that will be in the playoffs is the host in the Eastern Conference Hub, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I almost said Blue Jays for some reason because baseball's going on right now. Their spring training is going on, and my Twitter feed's filled with Blue Jays stuff, which is good. They always, it's good to see, baseball coming around too. And of course, the Blue Jays have a great setup. They have a hotel in their stadium. They have the Renaissance Marriott right there at the Skydome. You can watch a game from the outfield. I haven't done it yet because the hotel price is very expensive, and also because, well, there's no fans allowed this season. But, it's a goal of mine. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're hosting. And I was able to get a word in last week with Joseph Zita of Editor and Leaf, talking about the Leafs season so far and how they're going to feel. So let's go to that interview right now here on TKS. Tyler, take it away. Thank you very much, Tyler, from Next Week. Hello, I'm Tyler Kuehl here just in the past, getting ready to talk some Toronto Maple Leafs, and I am joined now by my guest today. He is one of the writes for Editor and Leaf on Fansided Network for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Joseph Zita. Joseph, how are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic, Tyler. Thank you for having me on the show.
Joseph, if for all you know, is probably twice as excited that sports is coming back and probably getting ready to do double the workload because along with his work with Editor and Leaf, he also writes for the Raptors Rapture for Fansided, which covers the Toronto Raptors, the defending NBA champions, the best team. And Joseph, we'll get into the Leafs here in just a second, but let's get your take here. Are the Raptors a possible team that has a chance to repeat as champions?
I honestly think they can. It's up to them or either of the Los Angeles teams. The Lakers and the Clippers are 2 great teams, but being a Raptors fan and seeing what they did this season, overcoming numerous injuries, they have to go back to back. They're coached by one of the best coaches in the league, and they're a solid team up and down.
Yeah, the wife and I were at the parade last year, and it was such a great event, even though it was complete and utter chaos. But that's what made it all the fun. And of course, this team has been able to play so well without Kawhi Leonard, only showing that the team was good, despite, even though he was the MVP, he was Kawhi Leonard. But let's get to this year's Leafs team. And as much as I'm sure everyone wants to talk about the Raptors winning, the Leafs have a chance, given that they're in the play-in round in the playoffs, to make some hay and maybe have a chance to win that big silver mug at the end of the year, something they haven't held in over 50 years. My grandfather was in his teenage years when the Leafs won a cup. Let's just tell you how old he is. But this has been a tumultuous season. I put that in the outline because it's such a great word, because there has been incredible highs and catastrophically low points to this Leafs season. In your eyes, what has made this season different from the past few seasons where it looked like the Leafs in the past few years were a contender, whereas this year now they're just almost a bubble team?
This year stuck out more than any other year simply because of numerous things. So we finally got a healthy full year of Austin Matthews besides his rookie year. But with that being said, the price of a fully healthy Austin Matthews came with the whole, the rest of the team being injured. And it felt like the team never could get a fully healthy lineup going throughout the season. Obviously, we know what happened with Mike Babcock, the highs and lows of the season, starting off 2-0, the team looking good. In my eyes, I was like, oh, this team's looking good. They beat Ottawa in the home opener. They went to Columbus. They beat them 4-1. And then they ran into Montreal when Kapanen threw a stick at Petrie. They lost to St. Louis. They lost to Tampa. And then long story short, I think there were 9-10-3. And then they pulled the plug on Babcock. They brought in Keith. And, that just, resembles how up and down the season was. But I feel like the Leafs seasons are always up and down. They're never consistent, and that just makes them fun.
I remember the 16-17 season so well because, I'm a Leafs fan, and that was, for the first time in a while, it's like, hey, this team is good, and they're in the playoffs. So even though that out of the last 4 seasons, that is, in fact, the worst team by record, it seemed like that was a much better season just because now that there's expectations, it's almost like the team is doing worse. And granted, that just kind of comes, Joseph, you living in, the greater Toronto area knows how just fierce and how relentless the Toronto media is when they put expectations on a team like the Leafs.
Mm-hmm. It can be very toxic at times. I know a lot of people, Leaf fans or not Leaf fans, they always say the Toronto media is the most toxic in the league. And, on one side, I can agree, but at the same time, they're just doing their job. But, like you said, the 16-17 season was your favorite. And it was probably my favorite, too. There was no expectations going into the season. A good majority of the team were all rookies. So, it was kind of like, prove what you can do. And they proved that, they could play at the NHL level. Matthews hitting 40 goals, Zach Hyman being in his mid-20s, making his debut, Willie Nylander, Mitch Marner. And other than the 17-18 season, because I think that is also one of my favorite seasons when they broke the record for the most wins and most points in franchise history. Those 2 seasons are up as my favorite ones. But yeah, the 16-17 season was a great season to watch.
Of course, Frederik Andersen that season did set the record for most wins by a Toronto Maple Leaf goaltender, winning a grand total, if I can find my numbers here, winning 38 games, passing Andrew Raycroft in the 05-06 season, which is still just a...
That's very strange.
That team, too, that team that...
Raycroft.
Well, okay, you have to look. Who was his backup? John Sebastian Aubin? Wasn't that his backup? No wonder the guy had to play 75 games.
Yeah, it is true. He did play a handful of games.
But now this team here, and because I grew up here in Michigan, so I got to see Babcock with Detroit. I remember when he was back with Anaheim, and when he first came to the Leafs, I'm thinking, perfect, this is the guy this organization needs. And it ended up leading to that point where the team actually got better and better, but it just seemed like Babs always did something funny in the playoffs. And I remember last year at the end of the 2019 series against Boston, I literally stood up and said, I'm like, all right, just fire him now. Because he's getting outcoached by Bruce Cassidy, who I have known since he was a coach in Grand Rapids in the IHL way back in the early 2000s. So I know how good of a coach Cassidy is, but I know how much better a coach Babcock should have been. Do you think it was a good decision by the Leafs to try to stick with Babs and give him one more shot, but then obviously he gets fired? Do you think they should have fired him earlier? Should they have fired him when they did? What is your take on Babs no longer being with the Leafs?
I'm in the boat where they should have fired him in the offseason, before the 1920 season started. I'm pretty sure there were rumors that they were thinking about doing it, but they decided not to, and they just decided to ride him out in the 1920 season. But I'm kind of with you. I enjoyed Mike Babcock being the coach for the Leafs when he came here before the team even drafted Austin Matthews. He helped the young stars be who they are today. But it just got to a point where Mike Babcock was coaching a defensive style game, and a good majority of the Leafs team were all offensive minded, and it just wasn't clicking. But obviously bringing in Sheldon Keefe, they're both offensive minded people, and it just worked out for them in the best. But yeah, I think if I was in charge, I would have fired Mike Babcock in the off season, because you look what he did to start the season this year, and it wasn't good, and it kind of cost the Leafs around 25 games, and now, they finished third in the Atlantic Division, and now they're in a play-in series, and who knows, maybe if Keefe started the season, the Leafs would have been first in the division, second in the division. Maybe they wouldn't even be playing in a play-in series. They'd be playing, for the round robin with the other good teams in the conference.
That would be, if, as my good friend Steve Dangle would say, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But it's so funny to look at that because Keefe has done such a great job. And yes, there have been times in his tenure where I guess the honeymoon phase ended and the Leafs kind of got out of sorts for a minute there. And of course, there was the David Ayers game, which we're just going to ignore that ever happened. But they were able to kind of bounce back. They had a great game against Tampa right before the pause. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, if they can just do that consistently, and if Keefe can stay with them, this team could, actually improve, even though they're already a talented team. What do you think Keefe has done with this Leafs team that has made them I don't want to say a more disciplined team, but a better team, in the exception of working under Mike Babcock? How has Keefe done this year with the Leafs?
He lets their big boys play. And what I mean by that is their most talented players in Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander. What I liked most about what Keefe did was if the Leafs were on the penalty kill and they successfully killed the penalty, he would load up a line with Matthews, Marner, Tavares, or Matthews, Marner, Nylander, whatever, and just tire out the other team. And the majority of when he did that, the Leafs either scored or they had numerous scoring chances. And under Babcock, he never did that. And going back into the playoffs, like you said, I was getting outcoached by Bruce Cassidy. The one thing that really upset me was he played Patrick Marleau, I think late in the third period over Austin Matthews. And, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that, you should be playing Austin Matthews, not Patrick Marleau. But yeah, Sheldon Keefe knows what he has and knows who is good on his team and who can contribute, and putting those, offensive star players more minutes on the ice. Like I'm pretty sure Austin Matthews is averaging when Keefe got in charge, he was averaging more minutes than he when Back was in charge. So the thing I like of what Keefe does is he plays his horses, and he's proud of that, and he wants to succeed.
Yeah, he's averaging almost 21 minutes a night. Austin Matthews is, and I remember when everyone was like, "Oh, you got to play Austin Matthews more." And I think he played it's in one preseason game under Babcock for Babs. Like, see, I'm doing it, but it's like, but when it matters, it's the big question. But now we won't have to worry about that with Keefe at the helm of the Leafs team. And another guy that you talked about, Mitch Marner. This guy had more expectation than I think any Leaf this year. Austin Matthews, yes, he is a superstar. The sniper, the goal scorer, could have hit 50 goals had we a whole 50 or whole 82 game schedule. Was, by the way, the only player that had played the most games as a Leaf, playing 70 games this season. Marner, though, just because of the holdout, because of the contract, because of Marner Watch. Literally, it's all we talked about on this show during the summertime. Both my brother and I mad. How do you think he is done with the expectations of now being a bona fide superstar given his contract he had in the summer?
I'm kind of on the fence. You look at his contract and what he signed for, I believe was around $10.8 million, maybe a bit more than that for 6 years, I believe. And that's a lot of money, in my opinion, for a winger. And, I love Mitch Marner. I love, his style of play. But in my opinion, that's a bit of an overpayment for Mitch Marner. But for what he's done here, we know he was sidelined with an injury when he hurt his leg or his ankle back against the Philadelphia Flyers. So he was sidelined 11 games. But looking at his stat line, he's had 67 points in 59 games this year. So he's still over a point per game player. But I don't know if that's a $10.8 million player. But there's always the playoffs for him to, bounce back. And there's always season for him to bounce back as well. But like I said, $10.8 million for a winger, that's kind of expensive. But you look at Artemi Panarin, he's around Austin Matthews money. I think he signed north of 11.6, and he was having a Hart Trophy kind of year, putting up 90-plus points. I guess maybe if Marner never got injured, he would have been on the same pace, maybe a bit more than last year's total of 94, I believe. But yeah, I think Mitch Marner did play some great hockey this year. There were times where it was MIA, and that might have caused Keefe to put Marner with Matthews and try with Tavares. But that's the thing, group of guys. Their top six is interchangeable. You can play Marner with Tavares. You could play Matthews. You know, the lines combinations are endless with this team.
And I love watching Mitch Marner play. He can be so magic. I will say this: the first 3 weeks of the season, it looked like he was hard to meet those expectations. And you know, something I remember almost from his rookie season, he would try to do so many crazy things just to show that, hey, I can be in the NHL. Now he's trying to be, hey, I can be worth, I think it was 10.893. I look on here at capvalue.com. It's his exact AAV, of course, the 9.3 because, hey, let's have a number from Junior in there for fun and stuff like that, because that's apparently the it thing to do nowadays in today's NHL. But he has been an up and down guy. And, you know, with that, speaking of ups and downs, guys that come in and out of the lineup, and there's no, especially in today's salary cap era, and now with all the reports of, you know, the CBA move forward, that's going to be a non-changing salary cap. Depth players are more important than ever before. Guys that are cheap, under $1 million or around $1 million, that can play bottom 6 minutes, and even third pairing defense, that guys that can stand up and play valuable minutes, even though it may not be in the hugest sample size. The Leafs have a good number of talent that are bottom six and that third pair, extra defensemen, guys coming up and down from the Marlies. I was fortunate a couple times myself to Grand Rapids, who this season has come up from the Marlies into the Leafs lineup and made such an impact that you know that they're going to be with this team for the foreseeable future.
I think it has to be Pierre Engvall. Just not looking at his second half of the season, because obviously he was MIA. You know, if you watch the Leafs, Pierre Engvall was, you know, lights out in the first half of the season. The second half, he only had one goal in, I think, 20 or 25 games, and that goal came against David Ayers. So nothing to be proud of there. But, yeah, Pierre Engvall, he came up, I believe, the night against Vegas. So the night before Babcock got fired, the game against Vegas, he came up, and since that, he's been a solid depth piece for this Maple Leafs team. He definitely could play up and down depending who's on his line, but, you know, he's found his role on the third line. I really like him alongside Kerfoot and Kapanen, or when Mikheyev comes back. I like the Engvall, Mikheyev, and Kerfoot. But yeah, Engvall was the type of guy that I loved watching. He had 15 points in 48 games. I said, you look past his second half of the season, and if he kept the same pace from the first half, past 30 points, and 30 points in a rookie year for a depth piece on a Leafs team, you really can't complain about that.
No, not at all. And I have two little funny little stories about Pierre. One was starting his not his debut, but the game against Arizona, the night Sheldon Keefe's first as an NHL head coach. Pierre Engvall scores. I think it was a shorthanded goal too. And you go to the bench, there's Sheldon Keefe like with a slight smirk of like a proud father. And it was for me kind of almost full circle, because I believe it was the month before is when the Marlies came to play Grand Rapids, and I actually interviewed Todd Crocker, the play-by-play voice of the Toronto Marlies. Said, you know, who's the guy? He talked a little bit about how good Sheldon Keefe has done in developing players and how they can transfer to the NHL. So it was kind of funny how he became their coach with the NHL club. But I said, who is the guy that you think could make that jump to the NHL, that first guy? And Todd Crocker, without missing a beat, said Pierre Engvall. And I got to watch him, and you could see how good he is offensively and be able to translate that, his offensive skill, into being a 200-foot player in the NHL without really missing a beat. Just goes to show how good this Leafs development system is, from the Marlies, even from, you know, their drafting in junior to the going through the place all up to the. I don't want to say the Leafs are the standard, but they do a really good job of taking players, developing them in the AHL, and then transferring that talent up into the NHL level.
Yeah, like you said, that a good majority of this Leafs team from this year played in the Marlies at some point in their career. I'm pretty sure it was around almost 15 players, maybe a bit less, all played on the Marlies at one point or another, and a good majority of them were on the Calder Cup championship team as well.
Yeah, I believe Martin Marinson was there. Trevor Moore, who's just been a wonderful player to watch. But now this team, Marlies, Leafs combined, have to go into the playoffs against Columbus. God bless it. Even if you had done the seeding and there was actual home ice advantage, it wouldn't be in Columbus. So we have to worry about the cannon. Thank you very much to the hub city. But the Leafs will play Columbus, and now that we've learned in the past week or so that it will be Toronto in the Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference hub will the city of Toronto hold. Is it a home ice advantage for the Leafs in this series? I know there's no fans, but the familiarity, of playing inside Scotiabank, does have the Leafs have a little bit of an edge Blue Jackets, or with no fans, neutral site, everything else considered, will it be an even series? What's your take on that, Joseph?
I feel like obviously the fans do play a factor in it, but since the fans cannot attend the games, the next thing that comes up in advantage-wise, in my opinion, is the ice surface. Every ice in the NHL is different in their own way, and I feel like if it has to come down to that, then the Leafs are familiar with their own ice rather than playing in a different arena. But, they're in Toronto. They're used to playing in Toronto, and they're used to their ice surface. I think that could play an advantage for Toronto. But if not, then, we're going to have to see. But I think the series will go down to the wire. It definitely will go to 5 games, in my opinion. People underestimate Bobrovsky, Duchesne, Panarin, Dzingel, but I'm pretty sure they finished with a 33-22-5 record, or a bit more overtime losses. They're coached by a great coach in John Tortorella. They were dismantled with injuries this year, but they still found a way to win. The rookie goaltender, Elvis Merzlikins, he came in and he shut the lights for every other team that they played against. I hope the Leafs have advantage with the ice surface or playing in Toronto, but you can't underestimate Columbus. They're a great team. I know they swept Tampa last year, so you got to think about that too. But obviously, Bobrovsky played a huge factor in that series, but they're no longer on this Columbus team. But they do have a rising rookie goalie in Merzlikins too.
And of course, Joonas Korpisalo, I don't know if he'll be the starter. It'll be interesting to see, but of course, Korpisalo was elected to the All-Star game before he got injured. And one of the games the Leafs missed out on that third game against Columbus, they went 1-1 against the Blue Jackets, as the Blue Jackets got an overtime win against the Leafs. And so much talent. I mean, as someone who really loves the way Tortorella coaches, John Tortorella's coaching, the way the team is built is not built for star power anymore. And that's why I think Tortorella just thrives off that, because you look at the two successful with in Tampa. Yeah, he had St. Louis, Vinny LeCavier, Nikolai Hadboom was his goaltender. And with the Rangers, he had even a Chris Drury there. He had guys that were able to use star power players. And this Blue Jackets team now, it's almost like Tortorella gets to tinker with it, because there's not, you have Cam Atkinson who can score, but no bona fide stars. And does that make it almost harder for a team like the Leafs to say, all right, who do we watch out for? There's no, I don't want to say X factor, because that's not the case, because Columbus has so much talent. But is it difficult for the Leafs to go, all right, who are we going to try to, watch tonight? Or should we just kind of just play the game and see how it goes? Because in a 5-game series, you lose 1 or 2 games, and next thing you know, you're scratching your head thinking, my gosh, we're playing golf next week. Are we Alexi Lafreniere? That's how this series could go.
I think they have to just keep an eye on everyone. You can't underestimate any team in the league. Any team can beat any other team on any given night. But, like you said, I don't see Columbus having a bona fide superstar on their team. They do have some great players, though. Like you said, Atkinson, they have Pierre-Luc Dubois. They're getting Seth Jones back, Zach Werenski. Their goaltending has been good this year. So, unlike Toronto, how Toronto has bona fide superstars on their team, Columbus does have, some top-end talent. I'm not saying it's, the same caliber as Toronto. Columbus does have some talent on their team. But yeah, they're going to have to keep an eye on it. Can't leave, for example, Pierre-Luc Dubois. You can't just underestimate him and not expect him to score. Same thing with Zach Werenski. I'm pretty sure he had 20-plus goals this year. So he's expect score in the series. So you're going to have to watch out for him too. And the Leafs offense is just going to have to find a way to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets defense. One of the best offenses in the league versus one of the best defense in the league. So it's going to be a great series to watch.
Yeah, the Blue Jackets gave up only 57 goals this year, which is actually the least in their division. That's against a New York Islanders team that is coached by Barry Trotz. So that just tells you how tough the John Tortorella defense is. I know we're looking at about over a month. I know the Phase 3 and Phase 4 dates are kind of wavering. Phase 3 is supposed to be July 10th, but that's up in the air with everything and the ever-changing case that is this coronavirus pandemic. But is it too early to tell, Joseph, how long the series? You said it could go the distance, but what do you think could happen in that series? Do you think the Leafs can get a jump right away? Do you think I mean, how do you think the play is going to go? Will the game be a little sloppy like the first couple of games in the season, or both teams will be fine-tuned, ready to go, and we're going to have ourselves some great hockey?
See, I'm not too sure. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if teams will be well rested and ready to jump on the ice and just win, or if they're going to be rusty because they haven't played in time. And a person that comes to mind is Freddie Anderson. Seen with him having a lot of rest comes not the best goaltending. So I hope that, a lot of rest for this Leafs team gives them, an energy when they come back, and, hopefully they will Columbus, but we just don't know if they're going to get rusty or it's a well-deserved break and they're ready to come back on the ice and play hockey.
Well, we will definitely see come whenever we have it. Obviously, the dates for the start of the playoffs will be foreseen. They're talking August, but then that's all for, a possibility that could change tomorrow. It could change by the time we do this interview. By the time we actually do the show for next week, it may be an ever-changing scene. Once again, we've been talking with Joseph Zita of Fans Hated, of Editor and Leaf on Fan. Also writes for Raptors Rapture. So if you want your basketball content, he's your guy to go to, because, by basketball content, I mean the good team in the NBA, the Toronto Raptors. I have their champion shirt, and I have their little flag that they were handing out there at the parade. One of the 5 million people that were there at that parade. But Joseph, thank you once again for coming on, and hopefully the next time we chat, hopefully we're talking about some hockey. Maybe the Leafs in Columbus past. We'll see who makes it out of that series. It'll be a fun one. Thanks again, Joseph.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you very much there, Joseph Zita. Once again, folks, we apologize for all the technical difficulties we had there. Had some glitchiness going, but thankfully we were able to kind of get it through that. The interview itself will be live on our... Oh, Kana, shush. Kana, get over here. Kana's the dog. She's barking because she's being a good girl. Oh, you can see her little face. Oh, you see her. Look at Kana. Kana saying hello, everybody. But once again, we apologize to Joseph Zita, and we will be able to hear the entire interview in its entirety when we post the Kuehl Show on our podcatchers, on all of our podcatching there. We'll be able to get the full interview with Joseph, uncut, unglitched, all that good stuff here. Hopefully it'll come up well on our YouTube video that we post tomorrow on our own YouTube channel, so you can catch the replay if you're not able to watch this entirely live, which I would understand, obviously having a little bit of glitchiness, a little bit of, I don't want to say Wi-Fi errors, hopefully nothing too serious, so we can continue on here because we still got another interview to go. We got Matthew DeFranks coming on here in just a few minutes with the Dallas Morning News. Him and I will be talking about the Dallas Stars. I know he's down at the Comerica Center up in Frisco today. Oh, Kana, will you sit? You just sit. Kana, sit. Kana, sit. Good girl. That's a good girl. Kana's going to sit and be a good one now. But once again, folks, we apologize for that. And with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Kuehl Show. We'll take a quick commercial break here and hopefully get everything figured out. Hopefully everything will work after this, and hopefully we don't have any more issues. But then again, I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show right after this.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log in and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Drink Aid, ready for distribution worldwide.
And welcome back to the Kuehl Show, everyone. Tyler Kuehl here, riding solo for the following interview here. We got one of our many awesome guests, obviously getting ready for the playoffs. We got to get all the people we can here to talk about the great sport of hockey, and especially coming out of the Western Conference. One of the teams that's going to be in the round robin will be the Dallas Stars, so we decided to bring on one of the writers for the Dallas Morning News. He also used to write for the Florida Panthers a few years back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Matthew DeFranks. Matthew, how you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am doing good. I say morning, but of course it's a pre-recorded interview when we record usually at night on Monday nights. But thank you very much for taking the time here, Matt. And how have you been handling this whole coronavirus pandemic? Everyone's been doing their own sort of thing. How have you been doing during this time?
It's been all right. I left Dallas for about 3 months and drove up to St. Louis. My girlfriend lives up there, so I spent about 3 months living with her up there, and then got back to Dallas maybe I think 2 weeks ago now. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment period, both going up to St. Louis and coming back, but kind of ready for hockey to start up again.
Yep, with Monday being the day that training camp is supposedly supposed to start, and with one of those teams starting up will be the Dallas Stars. Are they going to be starting? Are they going to be at the American Airlines Center there for their training camp like everyone else is at their home rinks?
They'll be at their practice facility up in Frisco. So that's where they normally practice, where they normally hold training camp. They just have a better setup as far as weight training and video rooms and all that stuff to get ready for training camp. And it's a smaller venue so that they can keep a tighter bubble, has, I think, probably better ways to get in and out safely than the American Airlines Center. So they're going to be up in Frisco, which is about 25-30 minutes north of downtown Dallas.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was actually supposed to be there in Frisco back in March for the ACHA National Championships when they were supposed to be down there, but unfortunately that was canceled during this whole pause. But a team that was good was the Dallas Stars heading into the pause. They were feeling very confident and a very good team for the most part. They were top 3 in the Central Division, unlike a spot like last year where they were in a wild card position. How has this team been different from last year?
This year has been kind of a wild year for the Stars, to say the least, honestly. I think when you look at it as a whole, they might be a little bit better offensively. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think they were 3rd worst offense in the league last year. And this year they've improved that to maybe the 7th or 8th worst offense in the league. So still not great offensively, but they're a little bit better. They found some secondary scoring with Dennis Gurianov and Rope Hintz, who hadn't truly had breakouts until late last year or early this year. So those are two kind of weapons that they've added. Obviously, we saw some down years from the big guys. Tyler Seguin led the team with 50 points, but in almost 70 games. So it's not really the production he's used to. Jamie Benn Alexander Radulov, Joe Pavelski, John Klingberg, they all had their production down. And so really, when you look at this year's Stars team, it's similar to last year's in that they lean on their defense pretty heavily. They lean on their defense and their goaltending. They don't give up a ton of chances, especially high danger ones in the slot. And when they do, they have arguably the best goaltending tandem in the league, probably the best one in the West. I guess you can make a case for Boston being better. Arizona's probably up there, but Dallas, with Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin, have been really good. So on the macro level, that's kind of how they look versus last year. But, on a, week to week, month to month, day to day sort of basis, it's been a crazy season for Dallas. They started the season 1-7-1. It kind of looked like they just were a bad team, that they weren't generating any chances. They weren't getting enough shot attempts. They weren't doing anything directly. And then that kind of switched around and, they changed coaches in December. Jim Montgomery got fired, and then they had the Winter Classic. They had probably a 3 or 4 month stretch where they were the best team in the NHL, and then they closed the regular season on a 6-game losing streak. So I think the break probably came at a decent time for them, where they were kind of losing their grip on a playoff spot potentially. They had some other teams coming up on them, but now they're one of the top 4 teams in the West, and they can cruise into that first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big part for this Dallas team, because I know some people think the round robin, they're meaningless games, but they have some meaning in the fact that they can play either a lower seed or a higher seed, depending on how they play. But you talked about Montgomery getting fired and then Rick Bowness coming in. But despite that 6-game losing streak, how has he done as the new bench boss for the Dallas Stars since coming on board?
Yeah, it's been mostly the same system that they've been running. Under Jim Montgomery, Rick Bowness and him both have defense first mentalities. And so it wasn't a philosophy change when Rick Bowness came in for Jim Montgomery in December. The biggest changes you saw were deployment based, honestly. He likes relying on his checking line a little bit more. So that was Andrew Cogliano, Radek Faksa, and Blake Como. So he kind of relied on them a little bit more and less on the young guys with maybe some defensive deficiencies like Dennis Gurianov and Rope Hintz. So you saw a little bit of that. He hadn't had a ton of time or a chance to change the systems, and I think that's going to be something to look for during this restart. Is the past 4 months, him and his staff have been not only scouting themselves, but other teams, and they've kind of landed on the fact that they need to generate more offense. And so when I've talked to him during this break, it's been about coming into training camp and having more possession in the offensive zone, better breakouts from their own zone, and better transition in the neutral zone. So kind of all 3 zones, they want to be better offensively. We'll see how that looks. Certainly you look at the roster and you say, the talent is there to make it happen, but we just haven't seen it in the last 2 years, really. So we'll see how it looks during this restart and if the Stars can be better offensively. But for the most part, Rick Bowness has kind of kept the same system and same playing style as Jim Montgomery since December.
And it's going to be interesting because Dallas, like you said, has had the big dogs, the Sagan, the Radulov, Ben line. That was I don't want to say they were a one-trick pony. Unfortunately, it's Dallas, so horses and everything in the rodeo down there is huge. But that was their big line, and like you said, the numbers have gone down a little bit. But that said, everyone's coming back. The systems are going to be a little bit different. Everyone's going to be a little bit rusty. So it's almost better that Dallas focuses on the defensive side, and then maybe those offensive guys that have been quiet throughout most of the season can possibly take advantage against I guess, I don't want to say an inexperienced, but kind of a rusty defensive system when they go into the round robin playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't think any of us know how any teams are going to look, right? Whether this long break has allowed veteran players, some of the older players to recover, or whether they're just kind of, 4 months older and not as good as they were before, right? So I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if the goalies are going to be ready to go right from the start, or if, they're going to let in some soft ones here and there. I think we're all under the impression that the defensive structure will be there because that's, I guess, easier to find than the skill offensively. So we could see some defensive games, but who knows if that translates to fewer goals because we don't know if the goalies are going to be right. So it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. And during the 2 weeks of training camp, the 1 week of exhibition games, I think we'll probably get a better idea of it. And then for the Stars jumping into that round robin, like you said earlier, they're going in with the mentality to win the number 1 seed in the West. I think there was some thought perhaps to treating those 3 games as tune-ups, because there is a difference between 1 and 4, obviously. But for the Stars, do you want to treat those as ways to get Anton Hudobin in a game instead of just relying on Ben Bishop? Because you don't know what the schedule is going to look like, if there's going to be back-to-backs or your tight schedules or whatnot. So there was some thought to that, but when I talked to Rick Bowness, he said, no, we're going in there with the idea to win the top seed in the West. And I think you and I both know that top seed in the West is going to matter a little bit more than it would in the regular season or in a normal playoffs year, just because of the reseeding effects and the fact that you could have teams 9 through 12 pull an upset, and then suddenly you're the top seed and you're facing one of those teams instead of one of those other would-be normal playoff teams. So I think that matters a ton to the Stars, and we'll see how they play and how they deploy and how they use goaltenders in that round robin.
Well, I've already said a couple weeks ago on the show when we've heard about when the draft lottery happened that it was going to be a play-in team that had a chance. And I said if Chicago actually beat Edmonton, that the fix was in. So hopefully it's not a Hawks versus Stars series, because even though that would be an entertaining series, but I would say this. I love looking at the blue line because a guy that came on last year, Miro Heiskanen, and efficient skater. I don't want to say he reminded me of a John Klingberg, but he reminded me of Klingberg in the retrospect that when Klingberg came onto the Stars years ago, he was like, all right, here's the next big young defenseman. And Klingberg has really developed into one of the best in the league. Now Heiskanen steps in. He is the youngest player on the roster, at least full-time. He's played the most minutes, average time on ice going 23:46. How has his second full season as a Dallas Star turned out in the Big D?
Yeah, it's for him, I think it's been kind of a season of 2 seasons as well. He came out of the gate really, really well. He was piling up points, which he hadn't really done in his rookie season. I think that was part of the reason that Dahlin finished 3rd in the Calder instead of Miro Heiskanen. So he was piling up assists. He was leading transition games. He was really deft in his stick checks and his poke checks, sweep checks. Really good with his stick and kind of getting the puck off of other players, and that's still part of his game. But you could see there are times later in the year where he wasn't as good offensively. He hasn't become Klingberg on the power play. He just hasn't been able to be up there at the point and run a successful power play as much as the Stars probably would like him to. But overall, he's the number 1 guy on the Stars right now. As much as we talked about John Klingberg and the points he put up even 2 years ago, or even last year he went in with Norris Trophy, kind of candidacy talk around it. But now when you're on the Stars and you mention the Norris Trophy, the first thought is going to be Miro Heiskanen, and that's going to be the way for a while. And for him, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, I guess, this offseason and next offseason, because his entry-level contract runs out in 2021, and it's the same time that Rasmus Dahlin, Quinn Hughes, and Cale Makar, all of their ELCs run out at the same time. So I'm interested to see who signs first for what and how it affects the other ones. So that's going to be a big thing with Miro Heiskanen and how he fits into the Stars cap. But undoubtedly the Stars will find room for him. He's kind of their biggest draft pick that they've hit on in the last 10 years or so. And he's been, as advertised, he's been really good since the start. I remember watching his first shift in the NHL last year, I guess second shift technically, but he was all the way up and down the ice, leading the charge, going back on defense. He's just so much fun to watch, and it's one of those things where you don't really recognize how good he is until you see him every day, and he's been that good, even though he has maybe tailed off a little bit at the end of the year.
That's the worst part about, I guess, to say the Eastern bias, that some of us can't catch those far West games, so you miss out on guys like Heiskanen and whatnot. Even some miss out on guys like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes. But I remember how everyone said 2019 was the year of the offer sheet with Aho and maybe Mitch Marner. It seems like 2021 may be the year of the defenseman offer sheet with all those big names. But
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it'll be. I don't know about that, just because they're all going to be such big numbers, and I think you saw it with Carolina. Unless you go really big, like Montreal needs to probably go a little bit bigger there. It's going to be an easy sign, and I think for Carolina made their job easier just knowing that I don't have to negotiate all summer, like the Leafs did have to do with Marner, right? So, right. So we'll see what happens next summer. I originally thought there was a chance that maybe Botterill kept his job this summer and signed Dahlin to kind of a massive contract as a like a last sort of ditch effort, and I was interested to see if he would do that and how it would affect the other ones. But I guess now we don't have to worry about that.
Right. Well, now I guess the big news with the CBA, the tentative agreement, and actually the almost confirmed agreement now with the salary cap not changing for the next few seasons. Do you think that will have an effect on all these young defensemen's next contracts?
Maybe. I mean, I think you'll probably see it more with the older guys like Pietrangelo. You'll probably see it affect his contracts a little bit more. I think the one way that I would see affecting the younger guys would be for their preference in terms of short-term or long-term. Like, do they want to just lock in for 8 years now and get their certainty instead of signing either a smaller bridge deal or something in between, like Austin Matthews did, right? That I think he signed a 5-year deal. So it'll be interesting to see kind of the term on it, because there is some uncertainty going forward whether hockey-related revenue will go up or if that cap is going to stay the same, 4, 5, 6 years out into the future. So I'm not sure if they want to gamble and say, you know what, I'll take a short-term deal and then hope the cap goes up and then hope my cap hit goes higher, or if you want to just lock it in right now and say 8 years at $9-10 million and just be done with it.
9-10 million. That sounds pretty good. I think I could live off that for just a few for almost an entire decade. But I want to go back to the defense there, Matthew, because I love looking at this team and just how just the depth of them. And I remember when in 2017, when Nashville ran through the Western Conference, even though they were the bottom seed, they had this defense, the top two of Ekholm, Subban, Ellis, Yossi, depending on, you could have put those four in any combination possible. The Stars have that kind of going now. Heiskanen, Klingberg, Lindell. You can throw Sekera in there. You can throw, John's in there, even Alexiak from time to time. Is Dallas's D-core getting to that point where it's overall, top to bottom, one of the best in the league?
Yeah, I think so. I think the only thing that they're missing is the offensive side of it, right? You look at Lindell and Johns, Alexiak, Sekera. I guess we could count Polak for this past year, and even though he's probably not going to be coming back, but all of those guys aren't going to be putting up points and not going to be leading a power play for the most part. So I think that's kind of where they come up short on that kind of two-way game. But I think defensively, they're one of the best units, pretty balanced. I think they can roll out six players and not have an issue with whatever pairings on the ice. Because I think when we come to the playoffs, we're going to see Lindell with Klingberg, Heiskanen with Johns, and then Sekera and Alexiak together. So I think you can roll out those three pairs and then and be comfortable with what you see out there. And I don't know if a lot of teams have that certainty. I think maybe you look at St. Louis having a better D-core. Especially I know Falk has underperformed this year, but Scandella has come in and played well, and you have Pietrangelo, Parayko, you have Dunn, Gunnarsson. You have a good core there that can do some things, and I think they're pretty comparable. Those two D-cores. I think St. Louis might be a little bit better, but it's just funny to see how different ones shape up, because that Nashville one that you mentioned, even as close as last year, right before Subban got traded, that was who the Stars played in the first round of the playoffs, and they were so much to deal with in the offensive zone because Ekholm, Yossi, Ellis, and Subban, they all kind of were active in the offensive zone, pretty good offensively. You had to account for them in the offensive zone, and I don't think you'd quite have to do that with, the top four of the Stars yet. So I would put them in the good, but not upper echelon of defense scores right now.
Well, they, like you said, they will be going against St. Louis, a team they went 1-3-1 against in the regular season. They went 4-0 against Colorado, only played twice against Vegas. Who really needs to step up in this round robin for the Stars to move on? Is it the goaltending? Will the offense really need to come on? Is it going to be relied on the big three? Who will the Stars need to help them move on, or not just move on, but be towards the top come the end of that round robin into the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't really know, because the 3-game sample size against 3 different teams, it's tough to kind of put a theme through it. Like if you just took a 3-game segment in the regular season and said, who is important there, I think it'd probably be different every night. So, especially against different opponents during this round robin, I think you're probably going to be leaning more on the veterans. It'd be my guess. I don't know for sure, but these guys that have kind of dealt with a lot and coming back after a 4-month layoff into a round robin, almost 5 months, I guess. They'd be more able to handle it. But I'm not sure if there's an overarching theme. I think the Stars will in general lean on their defense and goaltending like they have all year. But we'll see if that's a constant throughout the 3 games. Maybe Ben Bishop has a bad game and Anton Khudobin comes in or what. But I think they're just going to need kind of just overall solid effort. I know how poor that sounds, but the Blues, the Avs, and the Knights are pretty different teams, and obviously the Stars have had different levels of success against them. So I think it'll probably be different keys in each game.
You talked about how maybe Bishop has a bad game and Khudobin goes in. How tight of a leash will Coach Bowness have with Ben Bishop? Obviously, knowing that Khudobin could step in and play really well, obviously, though, Ben Bishop being the starter. How quick do you think Bowness would be if Bishop has a bad game to go with Khudobin moving forward?
For like a start the Nets game?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I think it'd have to be pretty long. I think that, Rick Bowness and Ben Bishop have known each other for a while. They're both in Tampa for a bit, when Rick Bowness was coaching defensemen there and Bishop was the goalie there. And even last year, when Ben Bishop was a Vezina finalist and candidate, he was talking about how all of his best seasons have come when Rick Bowness is the defense coach. So they have a pretty good relationship. And I think, especially in a playoff scenario, I think it would have to be kind of 2 or 3 bad games in a row sort of situation. Maybe 2 games in a row. I don't think in playoffs you can wait for 3 in a row. But I don't think it's going to be 1 bad game and you're out for you lost your job. I don't think it'll be that.
Right.
I think that, if he has a tough game and they pull him and put Khudobin in, the next game Bishop starts and has another rough start, then I think that may be the time to switch. But given Bowness's track record with Bishop and kind of the one horse effect of the playoffs, right? You see so many teams just riding that one guy. And of course, we've seen in the past few years with Pittsburgh or Washington where they start out with one guy and switch to the other. But I can't really see it happening that time with a guy like Ben Bishop and his coach, Rick Bowness.
Yeah, it's good to have a veteran guy like Bishop, who had been to the Stanley Cup Finals before, back when he was with Tampa, back in 2015. We've been chatting here with Matthew DeFranks of the Dallas Morning News. Y'all can follow Matthew on Twitter at @MDeFranks. And, of course, Matthew, thank you once again. We're excited. We'll see Dallas. August 1st right now is the tentative date for the qualifying round to begin. Hopefully we have hockey then, because, let's be honest, I've been getting a little antsy over here. I don't know how you've been down there in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm just ready for it to come back, ready to go cover something and write about something and write about training camp at the very least. So, yeah, ready to get going on Monday.
Yeah, well, good to see the ice down and players on the ice. Matthew, thank you once again for taking the time, and stay safe out there, and can't wait to see what you have for the Dallas Morning News.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show right after this.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Drink Aid, ready for distribution worldwide.
And we're back here on the Kuehl Show. Sorry about that once again there, folks, for all the glitchiness and all the technical difficulties. Obviously, we're still getting used to this here on the Kuehl Show, and appreciate you for all your patience if you're still tuning in here. Obviously, we're in the final, little over half hour left here in today's show, and I will also be, I'm not done yet tonight. It's kind of interesting. Not done yet. Got a little bit more to go, because I will be joining the Rando on Talking Minors with the Rando coming up right after this 8:30 Eastern time start of that show here on 12 Ounce Sports, here on 12ouncesportsradio.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for 12 Ounce Sports. So the video will be up tomorrow. Like I said, the replay of this on demand on our Kuehl Show Twitter page, as well as our YouTube channel as well. Hopefully not as much glitches, but once again, like I said, on the podcast form of today's show, that will have Joseph Zita's interview in entirety. Once again, thank you to Matthew DeFranks of the Dallas Morning News for coming on. I know we couldn't really put anything fancier for him. I apologize to Matthew on that one, but we were able to get it out and get the good interview we had with him and the Dallas Stars. Like I said, Talking Minors coming up next here on TKS. And, you know, with that, there's always issues you're going to have here when you're doing a show. I mean, there's always going to be technical difficulties. I know a lot of people that I follow on YouTube that post live stuff, and they have to do sometimes 2 or 3 takes given internet connection. So don't worry, we're getting the bugs figured out. I guarantee you by the end of this CBA, guys, we will be in HD, crazy awesome graphics and everything. We'll probably have an intern doing, being our producer over here in a corner that really has nothing more than my old TV and my Sega and my Nintendo Entertainment System. Do I have anything else? Oh, my PS2 is over there as well. Yeah, so that corner, maybe not. But eventually, hey, maybe I'll have a house by then. Who knows? But there is obviously some more hockey talk to go with. There is some breaking news that actually happened while my interview with Matthew DeFranks is going on. Elliot Friedman, good buddy Freach, didn't feel like texting me, but it's okay. Ilya Sorokin signing with the New York Islanders for the remainder of this season. It is a 1-year contract that is more of a formality, but it's $925,000 the base salary. And I'm not quite sure how this will work in terms of the money. CapFriendly.com, come save me now. Big contract because now that gives the Islanders a third goaltender. And I know there were a lot of people that weren't quite sure on how that was going to work with everything because, I mean, you have 2 goaltenders already not Yaroslav Halak, almost said Halak, but in Semyon Varlamov and Thomas Greiss. Now, that said, you had a third goaltender more or less to be your dark horse. And Ilya Sorokin, a very capable goaltender coming out of Russia. It is such a new contract that it's not even up on Cap Friendly yet because it has to be confirmed by the league, but just a little bit more. And I know that the Islanders are in a bit of a goaltending controversy, more so than they were last season, because Robin Lehner last year really took the reins for the Islanders come playoff time. And now, obviously, with him being in Vegas, now backing up Marc-Andre Fleury, that opened the door for Semyon Varlamov to really have a bounce-back season among some of the best in NHL history. I don't know if he's going to quite win the Masterton Award, but he has had himself quite the redemption season in the island, Brooklyn and Nassau and the island, both split in time. Belmont Park, it'll be up in no time. I'm sure Islanders fans are excited for that. But Barry Trotz has actually come out and said that it's going to be a battle between the two. He's going to have to see how it goes in camp. He's going to have to see how it goes come the come August 1st. And, you're interested to see how that's going to play out because I really want to see. I mean, I love the idea of having Semyon Varlamov because Varlamov, for me in particular, I remember when he was in Washington, those first couple of years, wearing number 40 and then playing the Winter Classic, those were great years for Varlamov. But then again, he had a great team in front of him. That was when Mike Green was at his peak. That was when Alex Ovechkin was just scoring any which way he can. I mean, then again, he's still doing that now. But he was a little younger then. I think he was still using CCM at that time, the first time around. Not even the captain yet. But then Varlamov went to Colorado. A lot of fanfare with that. Had a good season under Patrick Waugh that first year. But then they got knocked out by Minnesota, and everything went down the toilet. Now, I know that's not the sound a toilet makes, but you know what? Unfortunately, I don't have a side soundboard to make a flushing noise because I would. I'm not Mad Money guy. I don't do that. I don't know the guy's name. But regardless, the numbers are interesting between the two. Both are very capable goaltenders, Varlamov and Thomas Greiss. Greiss, who pretty much took the Islanders and said, hey, guys, in 2016, of course, let's just beat everybody and make it all the way to the second round of the playoffs, win a playoff round for the first time since 93. Pretty much did that. John Tavares, of course, scoring that famous double overtime winner at the Barclays Center in Game 6, beating the Atlantic Division winning Panthers, Florida Panthers. Yeah, I know. It's still funny for me to say that because I'm still wondering how that ever happened. That was just an off year for everything. I have to remind myself that post 04-05 lockout that the Panthers have won the division they were in twice. They won the 11-12 Southeast Division, somehow better than the Capitals, and then the 15-16 Atlantic Division. I mean, it's just kind of mind-boggling to think about that because I remember that Panthers team in 11-12. Remember who their starting goaltender was? Jose Theodore. Who their backup was? Scott Clemenson. Boston College grad Scott Clemenson. That team should not have won the division. Then again, hey, when you're Florida, you take advantage of odd years. 96. Hey, New Jersey Devils, defending Stanley Cup champions, don't make the playoffs. Hey, let's just Van Beesbrook, can you just take us to the final? Sure, just drags this lunch pail gang all the way there and yes, ran into a superstar Colorado Avalanche team who, by the way, would have played Florida in the playoffs had they not moved from Quebec. Because everyone always forgets that. Everyone thinks that the Quebec Nordique were just an awful franchise. I'm like, no, they had a couple bad years. Yes, they had the 3 years in a row. They had the first overall pick. But by 94-95, that team was actually a really good hockey team. They were the second best team in the NHL in that shortened lockout season. And then they pretty much took that team and just moved them to Colorado, Denver, put Patrick Waugh as starting goaltender, and Stanley Cup champion. Look at that. Hey, go figure. But back to the Islanders here. Varlamov versus Greiss. Varlamov did get the brunt of the games this year, starting 39 to Greiss's 28. Numbers-wise, a little bit better. 914 save percentage to Greiss's 913. 262 goals against average to Greiss's 274. Barry Trotz is smart by not giving the job right away. Because let's be honest, you don't know how good either goaltender is going to be after this layoff. You don't know if Varlamov is going to be Varlamov form that he was at the beginning of March. You don't know if Greiss is going to be capable. What if both are bad, but Greiss is so much worse that you have to start Varlamov against Florida, who the Islanders are taking on in the first round of the playoffs. The play-in series, excuse me. Goaltending is such an odd thing to do. And that's why head coaches, whenever they talk about goaltenders, I almost just ignore it because I don't know what to believe. Having played myself, having played collegiately, having played, semi-pro and low levels of minor leagues, I've never had a coach understand goaltending. And that's just not because I'm just biased because they didn't play me in certain games or whatever. Granted, yes, that happened. But these guys just kind of go with what they hear from the goaltending coach. If you could get the goaltending coach in front of a microphone, that'd be better. Because I like to hear what they say. I go, how's Varlamov feeling? Well, he's feeling good. He's got good movement, good flexibility. He's reacting to the puck well, tracking it well. That's what I want to hear as a goaltender myself. Now, granted, that may be boring to everyone else and boring to some of you at home, but I'd rather hear that than say, well, he's stopping the puck. Everything's good. Now, yes, that's a funny answer, and everyone's like, oh, they chuckle about it because, they're like, oh, this is great. Hey, it's funny because the coach is just playing it off like he knows nothing. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not saying Barry Trotz doesn't know anything. He was able to win a Stanley Cup with Braden Holtby, who was able to somehow have a pretty darn good playoff after having a miserable regular season. One of his worst regular seasons, that is. But I like the fact that he's at least not given an answer yet, though. Because you do want to see how they're going to look. Because in practice, you're going to judge by who's stopping the puck. But obviously the goaltending coach is in Trotz's ear. Assistant coaches, even the players. I mean, I'm sure he's going to, some of the big guys. Brock, hey, how's he looking over there? How's Thomas looking? Hey, Matt Barzal, you're able to put this puck by Varlamov every shot. How's he looking other than that? Well, get the input of the team around him because the confidence of the team relies on its goaltender. I have seen teams that are absolutely phenomenal with one goaltender. They put either a backup in or a different guy in net, and they just completely crumble. This is going to be a horrible example, but this is one that always comes to my mind. It was the 08-09 season, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. Michigan Wolverines. I could be wrong on the year. I may be wrong on the year. If you can, please fact check me. Throw it in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Billy Sauer was the starting goaltender of the year before, 07-08. And that was the year Michigan made it all the way to the Frozen Four. Billy Sauer has an awful game in the Frozen Four against Notre Dame. Brian Hogan comes in, finishes the game, gets to overtime. They end up losing. The next season, Brian Hogan and Billy Sauer once again the tandem. Billy Sauer was supposed to be the number one netminder, played really well the year before. But then, Brian Hogan has a much better year. And that's because the team had more confidence in him. The amount of goals, the amount of shots given up between the two, like Billy Sauer's numbers were so much worse in the 08-09 season because the team tried so hard defensively, they ended up making mistakes in front of him, allowing the great scoring chances. His help offensively was not there. The amount of, if you did like heavy analytics on it, the goals for with Billy Sauer in net that season and the goals for Brian Hogan were just night and day. No goal support for Billy Sauer, unbelievable goal support for Brian Hogan. That's because the team was confident in front of him. Now, in the NHL terms, yes, you've seen it all the time. When a backup comes in, some teams just don't know what to do with themselves. You know what? I harp on Garrett Sparks. I harped him on him before on the Kuehl podcast, and I understand that. He's a goaltender. He plays in the NHL. He's good enough to get there. There was no help from him from the Leafs. There was no confidence in him from the Leafs. Coach, players, management, everybody. That's why he only got one season as a shot as the backup. McElhenney, all the confidence in the world before that. Jack Campbell, a little bit more confidence. Michael Hutchinson, when Sparks was there, confidence. This year, not so much. It didn't quite go well for Hutchie. But that's what I'm saying. Will the team be more confident in front of Varlamov? Will they be more confident in front of Greiss? This season, guess what? The goal support hasn't been there for either goaltender. The defense itself has not been as good as it has been in the past, but they have capable goaltending, and the statistics show before the pause that Varlamov would be the guy. That said, training camp, 4 months off. Hey, listen, if you think these guys lived a clean, healthy lifestyle from St. Paddy's Day until now, I'm sorry, you're fooling yourself. These guys probably had a few beers because they thought, well, season's over. At one point, I'm pretty sure, at the height of the coronavirus, the first wave at least, I'm pretty sure not many players thought they were going to come back. So the fact that they thought at first, we're not going to play next year, they probably put on a few pounds of carbohydrates. So they have to get back in shape. Who's going to come out better? We'll see. Off the top of my head right now, I'd like to say Varlamov because he's had a better year. But as we've talked with, not just, broadcasters and writers and everyone, as you get the theme here is, who knows what's going to happen in these playoffs? Who knows who's going to be ready? It's all to be foreseen. Will Varlamov be a better goaltender? Will Greiss be a better goaltender? We have to wait. We have a couple weeks to figure that out. Barry Trotz has plenty of time to think about it, see him in practice, see him in camp. It'll be interesting to see who the Islanders go with when they take on the Florida Panthers. Now, that said, moving on, a couple players that are trying to get back to 100% to be ready for these playoffs. Greg Pattern of the Minnesota Wild, out indefinitely with an upper body injury. Interesting to see how that goes because obviously Greg Pattern, veteran defenseman on a Wild team that was starting to get hot there come March. Minnesota, I mean, I know everyone jokes that, oh man, another playoff run for Minnesota, 5 games and out, maybe have 1 win at home, get the crowd in Minnesota crazy, give them 2 more wins. This year, obviously no home games in Minnesota, but regardless, dogs barking in the background again. But Minnesota this year just may surprise some people. It's not going to be a shoe-in series against Vancouver. I don't expect Vancouver just to complete walkover. Yes, there is a dog tail in your camera on your screen there. That is Kana coming over to say hello. But I'm interested to see how that series goes. Remember we talked with Matthew Zator a few weeks ago on TKP, asking him about how the Canucks are going to feel going into that series. But I'm not quite sure exactly how it's going to go. Because yes, on paper, I would favor Vancouver over Minnesota. And yes, Minnesota was going hotter in the break than Vancouver was. So it may be a little bit even on paper. However, paper should be just recycled, thrown away, recycled. Do it properly, save the earth. But it should be thrown away. Because who knows how it's going to happen? Who knows that if... I keep comparing, I know, the Edmonton series to Edmonton-Chicago series as like the odd match, but Alex DeBrincat may have a great series. Corey Crawford may come back and steal the show and absolutely outplay whether it's Mikko Koskinen or Mike Smith for the Oilers. It could be a who-knows series. Chicago may win that 3 straight. It could happen. Anything's possible right now. That's why I think Minnesota, people are counting them out against Vancouver. I don't believe that one darn bit. But it all remains to be foreseen. Another guy that's trying to get back in the lineup, and a guy that's had lower body problems throughout his entire career, which makes me just think he's literally the second coming of Steve Yzerman. Steven Stamkos, out indefinitely with a lower body injury again. He did skate today, though, in Tampa at Amalie between the 2 groups of training camp. So I wonder if he's actually, you wonder what the timetable is. Julian Breezewa, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning, has come out and said that he is confident that he'll be ready to go come August 1st for the round robin. Now, he may not get used a ton because those games technically don't matter in terms of advancing. Obviously, you'd rather be the higher seed, but then again, imagine if you're the high seed and Carey Price has, as we talked with Jim Jackson, Carey Price may have 3 amazing games against Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden he's the hottest goaltender going into round 1, and then next thing you know, you're going up against one of the best goaltenders in the league, all-world Carey Price all over again. But I wonder, what's his feeling like? He's coming back, and of course Tampa had to shut down their facilities a couple weeks ago because of coronavirus outbreak. What's the mental state of that team? A team that has had so much heartbreak. I remember I said it, and I'll say it before, and I'll say it again. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win this Stanley Cup. Come hell or high water, they're going to win this thing because it's literally history repeating itself for Detroit in the 90s. You have the best record. You're always the top team in your conference for years and years and years. Heartbreak. People have to remember 2015, Tampa lost. 95, Wings lost to New Jersey. A team that in Tampa, people actually thought Tampa was going to beat Chicago. It would have been interesting. It was probably a little bit closer because remember how favored Detroit was going in that 95 series. Dad, if you're still watching, I know you remember that series and how the Wings were supposed to just smack New Jersey around, and then they ran into the 1-3-1 and Marty Brodeur, and they just couldn't get by anything because, well, Marty was all-world goaltender at that point. Now, bringing that back to Tampa, always a great team. Regular season supremacy, 62 wins last year, and swept by Columbus. Now, yes, the Wings in 96 they didn't drop off that bad. They at least made it to the conference finals and got beat by Patrick Waugh. But you almost wonder, is this finally the time? When no one's looking at Tampa Bay to be the team to win. This is their year to win. It's just like Washington a couple years ago, guys. Remember how Washington, this team, not have a chance to win. President's Trophy last year. Guess what, guys? They're done. It's all over. Curtains for the Capitals. They're down 2 to Columbus. They're going to get swept by the Blue Jackets. And then Braden Holtby steals the show, and the Capitals move on, and they actually had to beat Tampa Bay to get to the finals to win the Cup over Vegas, a team that was a Cinderella team. This is Tampa's year, guys. They're going to win it. I know it's going to come. I know, yes, it's going to be, oh, man, there's going to be no party down in Tampa because it's Florida and the coronavirus. Listen, it doesn't matter. Win a cup. If they win a cup, they win a cup. If the Leafs win a cup, I'll celebrate like they won a cup. Will the party be lame? Sure. But I will definitely be happy that they finally won the thing. And then, of course, when everyone's like, oh, of course, the Leafs won in a weird year. Okay, calm down. 2020, it's weird. The Leafs will win the cup. The Lions will win the Super Bowl. Who knows? Hey, there we go. Trying to redeem myself to all the Detroit fans out there. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know how Tampa's going to play come the round robin. Who knows? I'm curious to see that. Remember how we talked about some goaltending controversy with the Islanders? How about Columbus? Columbus is interesting. The team that's going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs, by the way. Jonas Korpisalo or Elvis Merzlikins. Now, let's take a trip down the DeLorean, back to September of 2019. Imagine being a Columbus fan or someone who follows the team. Hey, Jonas Korpisalo, he's an all-star, right? Even a Columbus fan would have said no. Even a Columbus fan looks at him like, yeah, he's good, but he ain't Bobrovsky, he ain't Bob. All right, well, now so we get through the season. It's starting to go along, and Korpisalo is this fantastic goaltender. All right, he's nominated to the All-Star game, and he gets hurt. Well, season's over. Let's call it off, guys. It's a good run. We have this Elvis Merzlikins guy going in the net. He's not going to do... Oh, he won. Okay, cool. Beginners. Oh, he won again? He won again. And again. And Korpisalo's back. Guys, I think we have a chance. Who honestly would have thought that Columbus had an opportunity to really be a threat come the playoffs? I remember sitting here. Actually, I was not here. I was back at the old office, if you will. Back at my brother and I's grandmother's house. But anyways, I said there is not a chance that Columbus was going to be... I said that Columbus was probably going to be one of the worst teams in the Metropolitan Division. I thought New Jersey was going to do better. New Jersey. Fix my mic there. That just tells you how blonde I am. 2, how bad I thought the Blue Jackets were going to be. This was a rebuilding year. They don't have any star power. Foligno's your top guy. Cam Atkinson's your leading scorer. That's great and all. You'll be competitive, but you ain't going to win. And then, bam. They were a team, and if the playoffs were the typical 16-team format, they would have been in the playoffs still. Wild card team, I understand, but they would have been there without Panarin, without Duchesne, without Bobrovsky, and a lot of the year without Seth Jones. This year without Seth Jones, I'm talking about. But Korpisalo stood up. Merzlikins jumped in. John Tortorella came out and said both deserve to play. Man, how do you not just see who's going to play? I mean, yes, obviously with experience, Korpisalo has been in the league longer, but Merzlikins has played well. And as we mentioned with Jim Jackson regarding Carter Hart, there's not as much fanfare going into these playoffs. No fans, no loud noises, just, yes, the media. I understand. The media, online, everything, that will still be there. That was there last year. That was the year before. That was every year since whenever Twitter was invented. Even before then, AOL Messenger was getting all jacked up. Hey, man, did you guys see that game between Tampa and Philadelphia and they're in the Stanley Cup in the conference finals? Man, that Calgary series is going to be really good. Hey, that goal was in. Okay, I'm sorry. 2004. Jumping back to that. Back to 2020 here. The longest year thus far. The longest year in probably humanity. Okay, with the exception of maybe 1918 and whenever the Black Plague started. I digress. I'm interested to see how Columbus will pull this off. If they're able to pull it off. Listen, there is a great chance that they could smack around the Leafs. I love watching Leafs-Columbus games because here's what happens. They go to Columbus and they either get killed or they barely win. Come to Toronto, always a tight game. From my recollection. At least in the last few seasons. We go to 11, 12, 13, 14 when they're both bad. Who cares? Those games never mattered. But nowadays, they're always competitive. You don't know what's going to happen. Columbus may walk in and win 3 straight. Remember we talked with Joseph Zita before. They may come in and win 3 straight games. Toronto may win 3 straight games. Who's going to start? Korpisalo may start game 1, give up, 4 on 30 shots. Merzlikhin comes in, posts a shutout. May give up 4 goals the next game. And then Korpisalo goes in, stops 39-40. That's maybe how Tortorella's going to play this thing. May play it like a collegiate-style hockey team where, all right, you play bad one night, other guy gets the call. He plays bad, then you go back in net. Why not? If it works, if it worked in the regular season, it'll probably, I don't know if it'll work now, but hey, go for it. No one's picking Columbus to win this thing. Columbus wasn't even supposed to be here. So why not give Columbus an honest opportunity? We're heading in the final 13 minutes of today's show. Once again here on 12-Ounce Sports. Coming up next, talking Miners with the Rando. Rando's going to be talking about all sorts of good stuff. Not just talking to me either. Not just talking to me about hockey, and both collegiately and professionally. He'll also be talking about all the good stuff, including the MLS's back tournament. I'm sure also regarding the Toronto FC DC United cancellation. The the Washington football team's name change. I can't say the Redskins anymore. And maybe some more baseball talk. I know there's obviously a lot of intra-squad games going on, so there's some highlights there. He'll probably get into that as well. That's coming up at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, so just a little over 10 minutes from now. And once again, if you're still tuned in, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or 12ouncesportsradio.com, thank you very much for dealing with us here today. Obviously, a lot we had to get through in order to get to this point of the show. We really didn't think that we honestly were going to make it because, well, we just thought that, the feed was going to give out and we'll try to get next week, boys. It's like taking a 6-0 loss and you're just in the third period. I'm well, this one's over. May as well just sit back and relax. Nope. We kept pushing on through and we finished strong. We'll probably lose the game 6-5, but darn it, we kept trying till the end. But obviously a lot of great other stuff we'll be talking about next week. We already have both our guests lined up. We just got to obviously confirm that they'll be there. I already got confirmation this week. Just got to finalize some details on when I'm going to have them on. That'll be announced on our social media pages, which includes Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, at The Kuehl Show on all 3 of those. Once again, make sure you check out our YouTube channel tomorrow as well. We'll have this video of today's episode. I know it may be a little glitchy around the Joseph Zita interview. Once again, I do apologize. While the interviews were playing with both Joseph and Matthew, I reached out to Joseph, apologizing to him, and thank you, Joseph, for being very cool about it. We're definitely going to have him on, get some redemption, because Joseph, a great writer and obviously a fun guy to talk to, guy that was born and bred in the GTA, a guy that loves his Leafs, loves his Raptors, fun guy to talk to. Pretty sure he loves the Jays too, at least I hope so, because the Jays, it's going to be their year. No, it's not going to be their year. The Jays will be good. Playoff team, I don't know, but they'll be good. I do have my thoughts on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing first base, but I digress. I'm not here for the baseball talk. If this were a baseball show, well, you guys wouldn't be watching or listening because you guys are here for a hockey show, not a baseball show. I may have baseball fans, but there wouldn't be nearly as many. I don't know as much about baseball. I played baseball. I was really good at throwing at people. At least that's what my coach said, whether I did it intentionally or not. But I was really good at hitting the catcher's mitt, right down the middle, or I was good at hitting people. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. It was right in the strike zone or at a guy's shoulder. Now, whether or not that was on purpose or accidental, I'll let you all figure that out. But I'm interested to see how these playoffs go. It's going to be interesting. April 1st, we'll probably do our big preview episode the week before. That'll be, or at least the week before August 1st, the final Monday before, which will be July the 27th, which will have pretty much making sure that everything's good by then, making sure that we are going to play so we can actually get predictions in. Obviously, just round by round we'll go because we can't just say go through the entire playoffs because we'll be wrong come round 2. Because I guarantee you, if you tell me that, Edmonton's favored to beat Chicago, but hey, Chicago may sweep them, that's great. Arizona and Nashville, who knows? We talked with Pete Weber last week, and Pete Weber gave the definite positives with the Nashville Predators and how good they have been since John Hines took over. Obviously, a little bit of a skid there towards the beginning of March, but regardless, who knows how Winnipeg-Calgary is going to go? Could I tell you who's going to win Carolina-New York series? No, I can't. I know how my brother feels about that series, and I can tell you, if Henrik Lundqvist can put on a show, who knows? I mean, if Georgiev gets in for the Rangers, maybe the Canes have a chance, but like Luke DeCock said last week on the show, there may be an opportunity for Lundqvist to steal a series, even though he is older than dirt. Queen Elizabeth II is just a hair older than Henrik Lundqvist. And it's a King Henrik joke, guys. I'm saying the kingdom. He's been around for a while, guys. That's what I'm trying to get at here. If you guys, are you following me? Okay, cool. You follow me at this point for this long, and I apologize for that, but I mean, I think it's going to be a fun playoff. It's going to be busy. It's going to be loud. We're going to be yelling about the entire time. Like I said, we're thinking about twice a week. I'm not going to confirm anything yet. Still got to talk to Alex on that one. He may not be here for both shows in the week, but just want to make sure I can work everything out because, I do have a life outside of this, contrary to what many people believe. The wife, for example. The wife likes to tell me all the time what she thinks about all this stuff, but it's all good fun. But that is pretty much it for this one. We'll end it a little early this week. I know my brother's like, you're going to end it early this week. Yes, Alex, that's not here right now. We're going to end it early this week because, I just pretty much ran out of stuff to talk about. There's been no news in the last 5 minutes. At least I haven't been told anything yet. But it's going to be a great series, a great bunch of series. We'll see how many go the distance, how many go short. Who knows? Hopefully we'll have some news next week. Obviously more training camp news because if hockey Twitter was anything like it was today, it will be, I'm not going to say the word LIT, but it'll be an exciting time to be a hockey fan because guess what, folks? We have hockey back. It is showing that signs. The light is near the end, guys. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's slowly make our way towards it and enjoy this opportunity to see hockey in the distance. Some Shakespearean theatrical stuff. I'm sorry. I know. I do a lot of talking with my hands. This is why I almost wanted to do this show on video because I do this because I'm Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands when I start talking. So they start wailing around like a wacky waving inflatable tube man guy you see at those awful used car dealerships. Yeah, that's me as a person. And with the energy, it's always plugged in except when I don't have coffee. And then in case I'm just a droopy, wacky, inflatable, or inflated two-man thing. It's a lot of words. We've been using a lot of words. Once again, coming up here at 8:30 at the bottom of the hour, talking minors with the Rando. I'll be joining him a little bit early on in the show, talk about hockey more, probably more stuff from this, and some college puck too, obviously with that. A little bit of a hint for college hockey talk next week. I may have an interesting guest that you guys will all be interested in, including some Detroit Red Wings stuff. So for all you Red Wings fans out there, be sure to tune in next week. Possibly, maybe, who knows? Mysterious, unsolved mysteries. Not a good reboot by Netflix. Once again, you should have left it as is. I don't know where I'm going with this. Thank you guys once again. Be sure to follow the show once again at The Kulis Show, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Use the hashtag TKS when you talk about today's show. Tweet me at TJKU29. Tweet Alex at RealAlexKuhl on Twitter. Follow us both on Instagram as well. It has been a wonderful time talking to all of you folks once again here on The Kuhl Show. We will see you all next week, Monday night, 6 o'clock. We will be back, and we'll be talking more great hockey talk here on The Kuhl Show, here on 12 Ounce Sports. We will see you all next week. Goodbye, everybody.